This is Motorsport Radio. Join the conversation and have your say on motorsport-radio.com. Motorsport Radio. The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.
Hello and welcome to Motorsport Radio. My name is Lester. This is the Superbike Show, and in the next couple of hours, we will have some brilliant news as well as some fantastic interviews for you. We have got on the show tonight Michael Howarth, who will be talking about his commentary exploits that he's been doing in BSB and his hopes of getting back on track as a rider in 2018. He'll be on the show live later on. Plus, we'll have Max Cook as well to tell us exactly what he's been doing in testing in Spain recently, with a view to potentially racing in Spain and on the MotoGP bill a bit more full-time in the future. That's all I'll tease you with for now. Plus, Charlie Nesbitt is going to be here a bit later on, and the man behind one of the hottest junior championships in the world, in the entire world at this moment in time, Roger Keys, the man behind Fab Racing and Cool Fab Racing, is also the guy who's skillfully put together a brilliant championship in where a lot of champions are being crowned from. Well, a lot of them anyway. A lot of them emerged from the Fab Racing Championship, or as it is now, the Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bikes Championship, where we were at the weekend. I say we, who are we? Well, it's for tonight's show, myself, Lester Forbes, and Kiko Alexander Giles. Hello, good evening, Kiko.
Good evening, and before we start things, I just want to declare I do have a cold, so apologies for that, and if my throat is going, that's because I have a sore throat and I'm bunged up. So you'll just have to excuse me for a couple of hours. Doesn't mean that the information will be any accurate or less accurate than it is normally. It can be the same old stuff coming out of my mouth, just with that, basically.
Fantastic, yes. So we are streaming right now in wonderful, lovely stereo audio sound, as we are Motorsport Radio. But of course, as we have been doing all season long, we are also streaming in visual radio. What's visual radio, I hear you say? Well, it's basically with a camera and doing the same thing. Nothing too special. It's just streaming on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and loads of other places with a camera, but doing a radio show, if that makes sense. And as well as all of that I just mentioned, Michael Howarth, Max Cook, Roger Keys, and Charlie Nesbitt, as well as some big news. We've also got, and we have to thank Kiko's Cold for this, as a bit of a late breaking bit of guest booking, and a supreme bit of guest booking, Kiko. We've also got Steve Parrish on the show.
We have the ex-BBC MotoGP commentator, current World Superbike commentator. So lots of things we can talk to him about, considering the World Superbike regulations that we've been banging on about for the last 5 weeks finally came out yesterday. And we'll get stuck into them.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll have some good things to say about them. Who knows? I don't know. If he wants to keep his job as a commentator, maybe he might have some good things to say about them. So if you've got any questions for Steve or Michael, who are going to be both live on tonight's show, then get your questions to us as well. It's at M-Sport Radio on Twitter. It's Motorsport Radio on Facebook. You can get in touch with Kiko Alexander Giles. How?
At MotoGP Kiko is the easiest way to get directly in touch with me. Or you can get me on Facebook at Kiko Alexander Giles, as is the popular route, I suppose. You can also get in touch with me by email, but you won't find that anywhere. So Twitter or Facebook, they're probably the easiest ways.
And also, as well as all of that, yes, we have a bit of I suppose, a debate that we want you to get involved with tonight. Something that me and Kiko were talking about on our way to Raura to cover the Cool Fab Racing Championships at the weekend. And it's regarding commentators. And because Kiko was, again, commentating at the weekend. And what a good job he did of it.
Thank you very much, Lester. I have a great trainer, though. So, can't take all the stardom.
Well, anyway, but yes, no, simply because we wanted to, there's a lot of connections on tonight's show between ourselves, Cool Fab Racing, And Dorna, for example, will tell you exactly what later. Some people already know who we're talking about, and also but we were having the debate and the discussion earlier about if you were, let's say, in charge of a TV channel or whatever, and you could pick any commentator in the world, who do you think is the very best commentator or pair of commentators in the world right now? Would you perhaps, for example, stick with Whittam and Bernicle in BSB on Eurosport? That's an option. Do you hate that pairing? Or would you go with someone else? Do you know someone else? Are you someone else? Are you a commentator listening and think, yeah, actually, I want to be commentating on World Superbikes, for example? Then let us know your thoughts. We will try and read out all of the cleanest, most polite ones on tonight's show. But yeah, that's the subject of the debate that we're going to be talking about throughout tonight's show, basically. Who are the best commentators in the world, and where would they be commentating if it was down to you? Basically, let us know what you have to say about that, and we will dive into the comments, which will no doubt trickle in on our live Facebook stream as well throughout the show. But I suppose we better get started with the show as well, Kiko, because MotoGP happened at weekend over there in that Australia. It was at a wonderful, convenient time of around 6 a.m. And I was forced to listen to it, even though I kind of had it recorded anyway. Kiko was up watching it. You don't need to know the details, but let's say MotoGP was on in our vicinity. It was a good race. One of the greatest races, by all accounts, according to some people anyway.
Absolutely. One of the greatest races for many a reason. First of all, because it was in the greatest venue, I think. Australia is a fantastic country with a lot of motorsport and motorcycle racing heritage, but Phillip Island is probably, for me, take away the weather and the coldness of it all, it's probably the best circuit in the world. There was a lot of debate whether or not the race was running dry or wet. It was a wet warm-up, of course, but by the time the event got underway with the MotoGP boys, it was dry, and we had a belting race. Coming from 5th to 1st in 2 corners, Jack Miller put Australia into 1st place, and he bolted from there on in. He flew off for the first couple of laps. Quickly reeled in, though, however, by the likes of Marc Marquez, Valentino Rossi coming through from row 3, Maverick Vinales. But there was no Ducati. There was no Andrea Dovizioso. He had a terrible start to the race. He was starting way down the order anyway. He went wide at turn 1, dropped down to 20th place. At the front, though, Andrea Iannone, Alex Rins, Aleix Espargaro, Johan Zarco, they were all there. There was a massive brawl out the front. Jack Miller was caught and passed by Valentino Rossi and Maverick Vinales side by side, 3 abreast down the front straight. But it was Marc Marquez for me who really shone. He waited and sat behind everyone until he needed to pounce, and that's when he did. There was a lot of battles throughout the race. Valentino Rossi and Johan Zarco. Zarco nearly took out Marquez as well at Honda hairpin. So there's 2. Iannone and Zarco, towards the end of the race, they actually collided, meaning Zarco had to run wide, foot off the footrest. After that, there was Zarco with more or less everyone else. Zarco and Rossi went head-to-head, like we say, but it was Marquez and Rossi, that fight that started all the way back in Argentina, or even in Qatar in 2014, reignited in Argentina a year later, carried on till Assen, came to blows in Malaysia 2015. It was back on the calendar 2017. It's been away for a long time. Arguably Silverstone was the last time Marquez and Valentino Rossi went head-to-head last year, but this year it hasn't happened until now. Marquez and Rossi rubbed shoulders at one point. In fact, there was tyre marks on Marquez's Honda on the Yamaha Valentino Rossi. So them 2 are at it, but the best thing about it all, there was no complaints. From a non-looker's point of view, it looked a bit rough, and especially if you're looking at Johan Zarco, it definitely was maybe a little bit on the harsh side. However, it's racing. You know, it's not a knitting competition. It's not a fishing contest. You're out there to win races, and you're out there to do it at all costs. So Johan Zarco put one of the most incredible moves on the on the number 25 Yamaha Maverick Vinales at turn 1, around the outside, which is about 140 miles an hour, and he still made it work. It was one of the best moves of the season, if not the move of the season. In terms of style, it wasn't wayward. Zarco just held it in there perfectly. Marquez eventually got away at the front. Valentino Rossi, Johann Zarco and Maverick Vinales were left to scrap over 2nd, 3rd and 4th place. Andrea Iannone, who was up in the podium places at one point, just faded away. Aleix Espargo, who I mentioned earlier, he had a massive crash at turn 1. He's out of the Malaysian Grand Prix with a hand injury. But it was Marquez who bolted off and took the win in the end by about 2 seconds. Valentino Rossi won a drag race to the line for 2nd place. And although he was 3rd going into the front straight, Johann Zarco did not hold it, and into 3rd came Maverick Vinales. So both Movistar Yamahas on the podium for the first time since Silverstone this year, earlier back in August. Zarco was 4th, but what a race. What a race. It was without that. I don't know if it was in terms of out-and-out scrap until the last corner for the lead. I don't think it was one of them kind of races where, it was a real head-to-head. That it probably does feature in there, but just not as high as maybe Catalunya in 2009 or Phillip Island in 2015. But in terms of the quality of the passes, the riskiness of it all, I'd say it was one of the hardest fought races MotoGP has ever seen, probably since 1949 when it did begin as the Grand Prix World Championships, because it was that you had 9 top quality riders at one point, absolutely at it. The stakes couldn't have been higher for the MotoGP Championship. Marquez knew that he had to win. He couldn't give any more points to Andrea Dovizioso. Dovizioso finished 13th. Marquez won. The championship pendulum has swung massively in the Honda favour now. And let's see, will that continue going into Malaysia this weekend?
Will it indeed? Yeah, interesting to hear you reference 1949 as well, Kiko, just because, it's just interesting, because you're only, 18? I don't know.
I suppose, but you look at all the great battles through history, though, and a lot of them have taken place at Phillip Island. In all forms of motorcycle racing. For the last 3 or 4 years, some of the closest World Superbike races have been at Phillip Island. 2015 with Ray and Haslam, 2016 with Davies and Ray, and likewise this year with Davies and Ray. If you look back into the 90s, you've got in 1990. Wayne Gardner did the unthinkable, beat his teammate, beat Wayne Rainey. His teammate was Mick Doohan, beat Wayne Rainey, and it was an absolute out-and-out, one of the best Australian Grand Prix we've ever seen. All the way back, you can go through all the records. When World Superbikes went there in 1996, there was seagulls flying everywhere, but Troy Corser was the man to beat. In 1998, we had the same with Colin Edwards and Aaron Slight and Noriyuki Haga.
And I'll never forget Gavin, of course.
Gavin as well. Gavin the Seagull, obliterated by Andrea Iannone headbutting it down at MG Corner in 2015. There is something about going to Phillip Island. There's not many circuits where you guarantee an unbelievable race, an incredible race across all 3 classes, but you can almost bet that when you go to Australia, when you go to Phillip Island, it is going to be one of the very, very best races on the calendar, not just in Moto3, in Moto2 and in MotoGP. Having said that, you would then think that there would be loads of people flocking to Phillip Island to watch the race. There was only 36,000 there.
Only?
Well, I say only, in the grand scheme of things, when there was 100, or they say 96,000 at Misano, you'd think, well, there'd be a nearer that amount than what there was for maybe more poorly attended events such as Qatar. But again, maybe people didn't want to go in Australia. Maybe, from a British point of view, you're not going to fly all that way for weekends. And the cost, of course, as well. Costs aren't going to be cheap to get to that part of the world from more or less wherever you go. I mean, unless you're based in Asia. But, I think they were a little bit surprised at Jack Miller's success as well. So maybe in hindsight, looking back at it, you can't seem to work out why people didn't go. But if you was to base yourself in the situation before the event, then you think, well, why was I bother? So there's swings and roundabouts, but like I say, did not quash the racing. It was a fantastic race in all three classes, history being made across all boards.
Jenny Darter's tuned in, and she says, just take a breath, Grinko, just chill out a bit. And hello, incidentally, to Jenny, and Stuart Everard, who's also tuning in and says, hello, chaps, evening. And we will...
so it's hashtag sniffles, hashtag snotty, hashtag nose. It couldn't be truer. It honestly couldn't be truer. I'm really suffering. I'm blaming the Motorsport Radio Hospitality Suite for this.
Don't believe him, folks. Anyway, Jenny also commented by saying Master Marquez was brill, as always. And a big hello to Ibby Watley, who's also tuned in as well this evening, as is Luke Hatton also. And we will get to everybody's comments regarding commentators a bit later on, when we're actually talking about commentators, Cool Fab, Will Superbikes, Dorna, and some such, and so forth as well. Question then about MotoGP for you, Kiko, without snot coming everywhere. It's bound to happen, folks. Just keep
brace yourself.
So, where would you put that race? Where would you rank that race at Phillip Island that's just been in the all-time top 10? Or is that maybe too much to ask? Or maybe would it be feature in your top 5?
It would feature in my top 10. There's a lot of races that you've got to compete against to get in your top 10. I think Catalunya 2009 will be, for a long time, my favourite race because, yes, it's great to have loads and loads of motorcycles going at it, but there's something, I don't know, a little bit more atmospheric and a little bit more organised about an out-and-out two-rider head-to-head scrap, and I really do like them, like we saw with Marquez and Rossi for a couple of years ago, and with Rossi and Lorenzo in 2009. It definitely featured in my top 10 though, because in fairness, you've got to appreciate that Phillip Island circuit is without doubt one of the fastest on the calendar. They say Austria is a fast circuit, but it's mainly straight. At Phillip Island, it's fast, sweeping. You got to really have big ones to attack Phillip Island in a way that a lot of the riders out there did. So it absolutely features in my top 10. It features as number 1 in terms of absolute out-and-out scraps, because it's very unusual to get 9 of the best motorcycle racers in the world going at it, absolutely at it. You know, there was no quarter asked, absolutely none given. And to think that, you know, we've come away from the days of it was 2 Yamahas, 2 Hondas, then it might be a satellite Yamaha or Honda, then it's the factory Ducatis. Them days of 5 or 6 years ago are well and truly gone now. You know, you've got a Honda that won the race, followed by the 2 factory Yamahas. Okay, that the result blows my comment apart there. But you had 2 Suzukis in the scrap as well. You had a satellite Yamaha in the scrap. You had, okay, no Ducatis. Like I say, you had Suzukis. You had an Aprilia before Alicia Spargo crashed. You had 2 KTMs in 9th and 10th. It all suddenly works itself out. Cal Crutchlow was in the battle as well. You've got a mix of nationalities, Spanish, Italian, British, you know. They're all there. All the ingredients are there. And what Phillip Island has done is made the product. You bought all your curry powder and your diced chicken and everything. You bought your curry powder and you bought your chicken and you bought your rice and the plates and the cutlery, but you've got to get it all together. And that's what Phillip Island did. It manufactured the best race out of the best ingredients. Oh. It was 110%, probably the most entertaining, top-class, premier-class race I've ever seen in my life.
But still not a black pudding, though, eh?
But it's not quite a black pudding.
Okay.
What you need for a black pudding is Ducati to make the jump. What Ducati were this weekend was a little bit like a korma, you know, but maybe a disappointing korma, a poor korma, you know, a porma. Maybe that's what we can call it. They should have been there, right? But what we had at the front of the race was a Vindaloo. It was hot. It was spicy, there was full of flavour and action, and everything was there. It was absolutely, out and out, blow for blow, the best thing you've ever seen. And it left you needing a glass of water at the end.
Anyway, so was the race, Kiko's delirious with food on his mind, with a head full of snot, but was the race at Phillip Island a delicious korma? Did it leave you hungry for more? Let us know. I don't even know what, I mean, anyway, we did have a nice hog roast at the weekend. That's the,
we did. Well,
the nicest thing that
I nearly had two by the time you'd finished, but...
Yeah, but thank you. Anyway, so people listening were like, "What the hell are they talking about?" Cool Fab Racing, yeah, the hospitality.
The people at Cool Fab Racing for that. It was a beautiful little thing to round off what was a brilliant season, really. We'll get on to that later.
Yes, we will. We will certainly delve deep into all things Cool Fab a bit later on in the Superbike show on Motorsport Radio. Luke Hatton is LOLing at the top description, presumably about the curry. That'll also be an outtake for the end of season show as well, Kiko. Mr. Volvo's been on, Steve Buckingham. It says, Mr. Volvo here. Hi, Steve. And
to Steve from that well-known foreign territory of Norfolk. Welcome onto the show to get your thoughts in.
Indeed, and don't forget to share this this live stream as well, because sharing is caring, and it would make me smile, I suppose, if you shared the link to our humble little show. So yeah, I was just having a quick look at, as I usually do, see the top three MotoGP, and then scroll down to see which Brits finished where. Cal Crutchlow seemed to did he actually have an incident in the race, because he finished pretty decent. I remember, because I was like half asleep at the time, and I was only kind of listening to it. But I think I remember, the commentator going off on one and then staying on one all the way through till the end of the race. And in there, I remember him saying something about Cal. What actually happened to him? Or did he just have a great race and finish fifth?
I think he just had a good race, a really good race. He said that the target before the weekend was to win. That was always going to be pushing it a little bit too far, I thought. But he proved himself, and he held it all the way. Like you say, he was within 4 seconds of the race victory. Okay, he didn't win it like last year. But last year we had a lot of variables to make it kind of a lot more of an even playing field, because it had been wet all weekend. There was no real consistent track conditions where all the factory teams to dial their data in and whatnot. So it gave the privateer teams an advantage, hence why Cal Crutchlow won. Not taking away the performance, you still have to win a race in very harsh conditions like he did last year. But back to this year, he had a really good race. The pace was really hot. He duffed up Andrea Iannone on the final lap, but at one point, Johann Zarco kind of separated the chasing group from Marc Marquez, because some of the passes he was doing, it's like he was thinking for the moment and not for the battle for the win. He was kind of looking like, I've got to just get back past him, instead of just sitting behind and following another rider. Now, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that is a bad thing, but that might have been detrimental to why Cal Crutchlow didn't get up to the top and didn't get in with the lead with the Yamahas. It all did fragment as the race got on, and I think overall that was more down to the fact that the cream always rises, and it did with the Honda and the two Yamahas. But that, like we say, it doesn't tell you the story about how that all happened. Cal Crutchlow was in podium positions at some points, and it was really great to see. But no, great weekend for Cal. Needed a great weekend as well. Had 2 crashes at Motegi, had a dire Aragon. Before that, it was Mazzano, which was okay. And before that was the British Grand Prix, which is, again, okay. But Crutchlow's up there. Crutchlow just needs to have a good end to the season, maybe stick a podium on the cards at Valencia, and we'll see where we can go next year. So, but no, Cal Crutchlow, good result from him. Bradley Smith, likewise as well, found his mojo back, I think, a little bit. Did Bradders, 10th place for him on the KTM.
That equals his best finish as well all season.
Absolutely.
Look at me with the stats, eh?
Steady on, where are you reading from off screen?
MotoGP website.
The 10th place he previously had was Mazzano in the wet. So that what that result does is actually it's a better than a 10th place, as indicated. 16 seconds off the win, yes, but in the dry. Then again, having said that, to cancel that equation out, Phillip Island has this habit of throwing weird results up year on year. We had in 2015, it was, we was all more or less expecting what happened with Rossi, Marquez, Lorenzo, and Dovizioso and Iannone. But last year, no one expected the Cal Crutchlow win. In 2014, no one expected Bradley Smith to get a podium, but no one expected Cal Crutchlow to be running second with a couple of laps to go either. So in 2013, Marquez was disqualified because of the tyre issue. And back in 2012, it rained with a few laps to go. In 2011, it did the exact same. And we had Alvaro Bautista, who was fifth, crashing out as well. But up and then on in, it's been very different results ever since. So, yeah, it definitely is one of the odd races of the year, but it gives all the riders a chance. Paul Espargaro in ninth place had a great start. Both KTMs were actually dicing for third and fifth going into the Southern Loop turn 2 on the opening lap. So they had the pace, but it's just about getting the refinements, just staying with the leading group and not tailing off the back of them. So, yeah, great performance overall for KTM, and likewise in Moto2, but we'll come to that shortly.
Yeah, and just to let you know where the other Brits finished, if you haven't managed to catch up on the race because you were busy doing other stuff like racing yourself, maybe. Scott Redding finished just behind Bradders, a few seconds behind him in 11th place, and Sam Lowe's down in 19th. Overall, and only one DNF. That was Alish Spar. He was a DNF, and he was the only one of the race apparently. So
and it was a big crush though. If you're going to crush out in Phillip Island, it's not normally small. It's normally going to pick up and destroy you or the bike. This time it did both. Alish Spargo's was fairly second hand, but so was his hand. That was second hand as well. He's out of the Malaysian Grand Prix. Not as far as I'm concerned. I don't believe there is a replacement. I will just check now. I haven't had a look at my emails actually all day, so I'm not sure if they have replaced him. I know the Grassini team that run the factory affiliate team, they've had a problem in Moto2, but like I say, we'll come to that shortly. But no, Alish Spargo will not be riding at the Malaysian Grand Prix.
Well, the championship in MotoGP, as I think you might have mentioned earlier, it is Marc Marquez who's out in front on 269 points, and that is 33 ahead of Dovizioso in second, and then Vinales in third. Rossi on 188 points. Not doing too bad to keep fourth place. He's got Pedrosa breathing down his neck, though. The highest placed Brit in the standings, Cal Crutchlow, in ninth place on 103 points. And then it's Scott Redding in 14th place with 61 points. That's just one behind Alish in 13th place. How's it sounding for you on that? I mean, what are your thoughts coming into the final couple of rounds then?
Well, my thoughts are that it's really Marc Marquez's to lose. A lot of people would have thought that maybe Andrea Dovizioso could pull off the dream championship for Ducati. It's not quite formed that way. So Marc Marquez, it's his championship to lose, absolutely.
He might do it, though. He might lose it.
Yeah, we have seen that happen already.
You might have cursed him again.
The dreaded 33-point lead. Ask Leon Haslam about that. He's 33 points ahead of Andrea Dovizioso. So with 2 rounds to go, that means Dobby has to make up 33 points. He has to basically, 2/3 are not enough for Andrea Dovizioso, whatever happens. So he can have a third this weekend, but he will need more than a third the following weekend. Ideally, ideally 2 wins. That's what he will be going out there to do. Of course, he won the Malaysian Grand Prix last year, Andrea Dovizioso. Marquez, he crashed last year, but he remounted, and we all know what happened in 2015. I don't need to go there, but with the tangling with Rossi. He won in 2014 at Sepang, so both Marquez and Dovizioso have won in the Premier Class at Sepang in Malaysia. Vinales hasn't. Valentino Rossi's last win at Sepang came in 2010 on his swan song with Yamaha. Danny Pedrosa is a winner in Sepang as well in 2015. Jorge Lorenzo has won as well in the past, I believe, in 2013. But Johan Zarco, he's going to go well because he's got that form now. He's back. He's got his mojo back in us. But again, we're in Malaysia. We cannot predict the weather in Malaysia. It's going to be really weird. really wacky. It could be dry 1 minute, and the next lap it's a wet race. So really, anything can happen. Who am I going to put my money on for the Malaysian Grand Prix? If it's dry, I'm going to have a bit of Andrea Dovizioso. If it's wet, keep an eye out on Andrea Iannone.
Fair enough. Okay.
That means anything now.
Well, I to be honest, I don't have any opinion on this race at all whatsoever. Am I allowed to not have an opinion? Could I just be Mr. Neutral?
What is your prediction, Lester Forbes?
I don't even know, to be honest. Just based on what you said, I say Dovizioso.
Can't say who I've said. Pick another.
Okay. Well, why can't I say what you said?
Because I've already said it. It's been taken.
So, well, what if I agree with you?
Bagsy Dobby.
You can't. No.
I just have.
You can't.
Well, I have.
Well, you can't. It's illegal. It's against the rules.
Pick another.
I don't make the rules up. It's.
Anyway, I said earlier that KTM had a great weekend. Let's look at Moto 2, shall we?
Yeah, Moto 2. It was KTM 1-2. Miguel Oliveira with the race win and Brad Binder in second place. Did you watch Moto 2?
I did get up. I did get up and watch Moto 2. It was a great race, really. Both KTMs got off to a great start. Mattia Passini started on pole. He was 7th by turn 3, had a terrible start, and then he was taken out a few laps later by a flying Marcel Schrotter coming out of the southern loop. Apart from that, though, it was Miguel Oliveira who built up a 6-second lead at one point. He kind of walked off with it. Brad Binder, on what a year he's had. Considering he had such a terrible arm injury, Brad Binder's really come back strong and fighting. He has proven now to many people that he is in Moto 2 to win it. He's not a rider that has gone up to Moto 2 and has struggled straight away, like maybe Fabio Quartararo has, and maybe like Nico Tirol has in the past. He's been one of them categories where you either gel with it or you don't. Brad Binder has absolutely gelled with it. It was the first podium for a South African in the intermediate class since Mario Rademeyer, I think I've said that, or Rademeyer, back in the 1985 250cc Grand Prix at the South African GP.
Oh, yes, we remember it well.
But anyway, that was the last South African podium in the intermediate class. That's 32 years ago. Unbelievable. Third place was Franco Morbidelli, although at one point we did think that Brad Binder and Franco Morbidelli would be battling over the third place on the rostrum because Takaki Nakagami flew through the order. He looked so good through free practice. He really looked like he had dry race pace. The rain flags came out with just a few laps to go, and on the penultimate lap, Nakagami didn't adhere to the wet weather flags, didn't ease off, and he binned it up at the top of Lukey Heights, which is a fast left-hander, before you hit a right-handed hairpin. He was okay. He was up and okay. Bike wasn't. Bike absolutely blew itself to pieces. But Nakagami threw away a chance of a second place, which is a disaster for him. But we've had a KTM 1-2. What a performance from them.
And other big standout performances in Moto 2, would you say? I don't even know, to be honest. Like I said, I kind of struggle to stay awake at that time of the morning, so I don't. Well,
there was a lot of standout performances, but I'll pick two. Miguel Oliveira, I'll pick three. Miguel Oliveira for one, it's his first Moto 2 win. Portugal's first ever win in Moto 2. They've never won. And in fact, Portugal's first ever win in the intermediate class. So I said 1949 earlier. They've never had a win in the intermediate class since 1949. Never has it ever happened until Phillip Island. Miguel Oliveira does it. Second man, I've got to say Brad Binder. Really good ride. Like I said, his arm injury was awful at the start of the year. People doubted whether he'd be able to come back fully fit. He's absolutely come back fully fit. And my third man is Jesko Raffin. What a race. What an incredible race for him. Fourth. Best ever Grand Prix result. Never had higher than fourth. He looked really good actually last year throughout the free practice sessions and qualifying sessions at Phillip Island, and it looked like he could be a surprise. It didn't turn out to be, but in the dry, Jesko Raffin really came through towards the end of the race. The people who disappointed for me, Tom Luthi, although you have to take into account he did have a very big accident in morning warm-up. So Luthi, and he's lost grip on that championship now. He was 10th. Morbidelli, your series leader, was 3rd. So that was annoying for them too, I believe. For Luti, I believe, but also Agata, another Swiss rider, he was caught up in Marcel Schrotters and Mattia Pacini's coming together in the early stages. He was forced wide out onto the grass. So a lot of things to talk about Moto2, but what a result. KTM 1-2, and in third place, your series leader. Fourth, Jessica Raffin. What a surprise, what a shock, but that's Moto2.
And how did our Taron McKenzie get on in the race?
I believe Taron McKenzie came 23rd, and he wasn't the last finisher. He may have been 22nd, but he wasn't the last finisher because Luca Marini was the last finisher, over 30 seconds behind Taron. So Taron McKenzie out of points, but not the last finisher. And he actually looked a little bit better. He was only a minute off. Say only a minute, that's a lot better than what it has been throughout some other parts of this season. So he's getting there, but as we know, he's on his way back to BSP.
Yeah, it's still, I suppose, it's a good learning year for him, I suppose. Whatever, he might take that experience from this year into BSB, like you say, or maybe somewhere else in the future. You know, he's still got that experience of under his hat that he could use potentially. I don't know. We will get to we'll talk about a little bit about BSB perhaps later, or will we? Is there any news in that? Maybe we won't. Maybe we will. I don't know. But yeah, Moto3, incidentally, and yeah, this was another one of the races that my old eyes couldn't stay open for.
Well, I'll be honest.
3 a.m. or something, wasn't it?
I'll be honest. Not even I got up for that. I was very tired from a day setting up View on the Friday. Oh, sorry, very tired from that, but also from commentating on the Saturday. So I decided to lie in. I originally was only going to get up for the MotoGP race, but I thought, oh, what kind of fan am I? May as well get up for the Moto2 race. So I did. I sat in the front conservatory of the Motorsport Hospitality Unit and Motorsport Radio Hospitality Unit, and
front seat of the van.
No, the conservatory.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a good race, but again, we didn't watch Moto3. We do know, though, Moto3, Joan Mir took another win. It was a cut short race, actually. Rain came down. By the time they all got to turn one, it was way too wet, way too slippery.
It lasted about less than 25 minutes, I think. It
was like a teacher doing a show of hands. Is it time for lunch yet? And it's 12:15. So all the kids go, yes, it is. That's literally what it was like at turn one. Every rider put their hand up to say it's way too wet. It was a show of hands. The race was stopped. The race was called off.
I suppose the leaders would always probably do that anyway.
Well,
I'm in the lead now, so yeah, it's time to... Yeah,
but it was treacherous. You know, a couple of riders went down anyway, and a lot of them actually ran really wide. So not so good from that point of view from a fan, because you have a race cut short and no one ever wants that. But Joan Mir and his teammate, Livio Loy, we were first and second. Mir took the championship, his 9th win of the year, his 15th podium. That 15th podium equals Danny Kent's 15 back in 2015. And it also actually means that Joan Mir could equal Valentino Rossi's record of wins in the lightweight class of 11 set back in 1997. So if he wins the next two, he's level on Valentino Rossi. We all know what kind of a career that man's had. Yeah,
he's done all right, I suppose. You know, he's not bad. A couple of comments have come in since you were talking, Kiko. Cy Boyle's been on, and he says he stayed awake throughout the night to watch all 3 races. Well done, Cy. And then he went to bed at 7 a.m. Yeah, I suppose you're a better person than we are because we didn't do that. Regarding potentially, I think...
oh, sorry.
Are you all right there? Are you concentrating on the show? That's good. That's nice to know.
Oh.
Yeah, no, just carry on with whatever you're doing, mate. Just, whatever.
I'm actually trying to tune in on the iPad.
Yeah.
But
am I boring you or something? No, it's all right. Don't
trying
worry
to get the comments in. You just carry on doing your own thing, Lester.
Like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's me. Okay. Anyway, Tony Morris said he wants Rossi to win, presumably for Malaysia, up and coming. Chris Howells has
I'll turn it down.
Yeah, you should do. Unbelievable.
Oh, Carry on, anyway.
You should be giving your voice a rest, anyway.
You just carry on. I'm going to take Jenny Darter's advice. I'm just going to get a glass of water. One moment. You carry on talking.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable, Jeff. Right, and also comments from Chris Howells saying that, would that mean Aprilia, Sam Lowe's potentially riding the better bike if Spargo is out in Malaysia? Question mark. Or will they let the standing rider crash the better bike? Asks Chris Crash Howells. Hi, Chris. Tony Morris, hello again, Tony, says Kiko is Volvo's test pilot on tonight. Oh, Kiko is Volvo's test pilot on tonight. I think that's like an in joke or something, Tony. You'll have to tell me what that's about. Kiko's... Whenever I ask him, he just sort of bursts out laughing. Anyway, yeah, Kiko suffering with a cold this evening, and yeah, it's kind of funny to watch him struggle, I suppose, as he is no idea what he's up to nowadays. But what the hell is this now?
Well, I don't want to breathe in anything badly, so I've got a mask on for now. But it will be taken off for the next part of the show, which I believe is World Superbike, so, you know.
if only you could see him, dear listener. Imagine Michael Jackson when he wrapped his children in a towel. It's very much like that. But on running our discussion throughout tonight's show, you all right there, Kiko? Are you okay now?
I am. I've kind of recovered a little bit. I have a mug of water. I got the mug from the Ducati Museum. But
did you pay for it?
I have a mug of water. It'll do me for another 5 minutes until I have to dart off and go and get a prescription or something. But I'll be okay. Thanks, Jenny Darter, for the advice.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, welcome to the show, Jenny. And everybody who's tuned in, even for a couple of seconds before thinking, oh, this is crap, and then tuning out again. Well done. And thank you anyway. Yes, so still to come here on the Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio. Steve Parrish will be along in a few minutes' time to talk about the World Superbike's new tech regulations for 2018. He'll be telling us his views on that and what we can look forward to in 2018 as well, and maybe even telling us, letting us know that maybe 2017 wasn't kind of the snooze fest that it kind of appears on the outside to the rest of the world. Or maybe he might just confirm that. I don't know. Plus, we'll have a live interview with Michael Howarth. He'll be on the show, and he's tuned into the show, incidentally, just to make sure that we're actually talking about him. Hi, Michael. And he'll be on to tell us what it's like commentating as well in BSB. What's he? What exactly has he been doing this year? Commentate alongside Fred?
Yes, he has. Michael Howarth has been the resident expert alongside Fred Clark, co-commentary provided by Michael Howarth. Very good as well. He's got recent Superbike experience. He's a great man for the job. He ran the Tenor for Men Honda team alongside Tristan Palmer back in 2008. He's planning a return for 2018 next year, and he did come back for a short time in 2016. By a short time, I mean a couple of laps, because he had an outlap and then crashed it big time on his first flying lap, and he put himself out for the rest of the year. So, but
I'm glad we won't mention that anyway.
Yeah, we won't mention that, but we have anyway, so I'll stick that to him anyway. He already knows what we're going to talk about, obviously, because we spoke to him earlier. So, yes, all very good, and going to be a great show tonight, honestly. We have, it's been a bit short.
It is already a great show. What are you talking about?
Well, this is what I mean. We're 44 minutes in, into the show, and, you know, the interviews that we actually have tonight were very last minute, because we've been so flat out doing the catch up for Cool Fab and prepping for tonight and doing all sorts of other things like breathing and getting ill. So, you know, we've had a lot of things to manage, but we've managed to come up with a couple of interviews, and I believe we have someone on next week as well.
Yes, that will be confirmed fully as well. I don't want to jump the gun, just in case they are tuned in and yeah, I don't want to annoy them. But yeah, we've provisionally agreed an interview for next week as well. I'll tease you by saying it's someone very interesting from BSB. Ooh.
Is it a team owner?
Yes.
Oh.
But whom? You'll have to stay tuned to
one of many teams.
Yes, one of a good few teams there. It's one of the top teams. I would say. That's literally all I'm telling you. I can't really say any more than that.
While we're on the BSB bandwagon, I will just point out that I was at Donington Park on Tuesday. I had a little catch-up with James Ellison.
And we saw him on Monday as well.
And we did see him on Monday, and I actually spoke to him about that karting thing that we saw. And
just to explain, James Ellison was at Rowra, along with a few other riders and racers for, I think, an 11 Degree sponsor event, and they were racing around the Rowra kart track. We didn't actually catch up with them because they were busy racing and we were busy packing up, sort of thing. But they were there on the Monday, and James was at Donington, and Kiko was on the Tuesday as well.
I was, and I did see that. He was a track day, so you can't read too much into it. But James looked settled in, really focused, determined to make 2018 his last year in BSB a big one. Interestingly, of course, the Tag Racing Yamaha team run K-Tech suspension, and McCann's Yamaha, which he was at last year, run the Öhlins. Now, James Ellison is really wanting to go with Öhlins, but the team are sponsored by K-Tech, so there might be a bit of a conflict of interest, but all in all, really productive. James Ellison wants to win a championship. He believes he can win the championship. And when I asked him about his highlights and lowlights of his career in BSB, really, his highlight was finishing second in 2009, sorry. Getting a bit ahead of myself there.
Kiko's a little delirious.
Yeah, a bit premature there. But anyway, 2009 was his highlight, and that was when he finished second in the championship on a Yamaha. Will he go one better on a Yamaha in 2018?
Interesting. And just going back to what we were briefly talking about a moment ago regarding Michael Howarth and commentators, we are asking you this evening on the Superbike show on Motorsport Radio, who is the best commentators at the moment in the world? Now, this is not some sort of honestly, genuinely isn't some sort of backdoor way of fishing for compliments, because Kiko was commentating at the weekend and I will do a little bit of commentating. But no, genuinely, we were having this discussion because there are some, let's say, commentary movements which we might go into later on in the show. We will definitely dive into that bit of news that we have for you, and we want your views on it as well. We've already had a couple of comments come in. Chris Howells has been on earlier. He said Toby Moody and Julian Ryder on MotoGP on Eurosport, far better than Keith Hewin, says Chris Howells. Let us know what you think, if you disagree with that, if maybe you've got other people in mind who you might have heard, I don't know, commentating on some circuit racing or some person on TV and you thought, I can imagine that voice commentating on MotoGP or World Superbikes or something else, or BSB, for example. Or do you think maybe the people who are currently commentating on TV, who we're listening to, are the best people for the job? And tell us and let us know why. Andy Daly's been on and said Fred Clark and Murray Walker. Now, maybe a few years ago, Andy, that would be a wow. But I mean, provisionally, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, apart from the fact that they're both kind of pushing on a little bit, if polite, but both very loved, ultimately. But yes, I would say, why not, Andy? At least for one race. That'd be amazing, though. I think. Best commentator, says Jenny Darter. Obviously, Tom Brooks and you guys, of course. Jenny, behave. And she also says she loves the commentary at Fab Races. Absolutely brilliant. So who do you think, perhaps, if you were, let's say you were in charge of a TV station and you thought, you know what, we're going to get rid of Keith Hewin, hit the road, Keith, and who can we look at? Who is the best? Would you bring someone like Toby Moody back into the British commentary realm of stuff? I don't even know what he's doing nowadays, to be honest.
Toby Moody started off doing he's doing like X Games or something, is he? Yeah, he does the Austin X Games, and he also annually, because it was his first ever commentary experience, he does it's a hill climb. I can't remember where. Is it Chelsea Walsh or somewhere like that?
Chelsea Walsh.
That might be.
It could be. I don't even know, to be honest.
No, if that's the place, that's definitely where, because he goes back every year. Obviously, there's loads of other commentators as well. In British Superbikes for a long time, we had Barry Nutley and the bloke who's coming on Britain's fastest prankster, Steve Parish. Them two were at it. On the, they were commentating. We phrased that bit there. And Roger Burnett, of course, who is Sam Lowe's manager now over in Grand Prix. You had who else have we had? We've had loads of commentators through time. Lee Diffie for World Superbikes back on BBC. That would have been.
Yeah, he's not bad. Does Formula One now, of course.
Lee Diffie for me is probably one of the best commentators because he's so all-rounded. There is nothing that lad does not know about motorsport. He's just incredible. Since we're sticking with the Superbike show, we won't go to Formula One commentators. Charlie Cox, of course, who partnered again, Steve Parish, who's coming on in 10 minutes' time. So, yeah, lots of commentators out there, but who's your favourite? Get us tweeted in and think, who would they be good partners with? Well, here's another question. What ex-riders, British riders, would you like to see in the commentary box sometime soon? Shane Burns doing a lot of presenting at the moment. Is he an option? And
also, this is something that Kiko's quite hot on. Do they need an accent? Because traditionally in BSB or in, let's say, bike racing commentary in general, I think we've always kind of heard a very regional type of accent wherever that region is, but is that compulsory? Kiko seems to think it is anyway. Because when I was floating ideas and names about,
it's an added extra. It is an added extra. I do believe
it makes them stand out, of course. But
yes.
Just because, I mean, I was thinking of someone on our drive up to Cumbria, and they didn't particularly have an accent. In fact, they sounded quite posh, but and then Kiko instantly dismissed it just because they don't have an accent. They're not proper northern or something or whatever.
It depends who you work for, though. Of course, if you're working for Dorna, then you obviously have to talk very English. But if you're commentating on BSB, it's all right to have Jamie Whittam's accent or James Hayden's accent because it's British. If you're doing the world feed commentary, you have to be very, very clear.
Tony Morris thinks that Whittam should do all of them. Just all of them.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think he might maybe burn out if he did all of the races, all of them. But and he gets a bit more specific by saying maybe Julian Ryder and Whittam together. Perhaps that.
That's two co-commentators, though.
Well, I mean, Tom Gaymore, it started off as being a co-commentator, and then he stepped up to be a lead commentator in World Superbikes. So yes. He's proved he could do it as well. Daily
reminder. Whittam and Ryder have commentated with each other before.
All right.
2007 at Assen, the World Superbike race.
That's very specific. Do you remember that?
I do. Remember watching it. Bayliss was... James Toseland had won race one. Them two were commentating anyway, but he'd won race one. It was going to be his first double, and Troy Bayliss on a FO... he was on a 999 Ducati, I believe, FO7 or something.
So you would have been eight years old?
Yep. Anyway, Bayliss got a run out of the final chicane and blasted past James Toseland's Honda to the line. And I remember Whittam and Julian Ryder were commentating that day.
I don't even remember 8 days ago, to be honest. Well, I genuinely don't. I've got a problem. But yeah, well,
that was because it was significant. I can't remember anything significant that happened 8 days ago.
Well, probably nothing did. I don't know. But let us know, incidentally, if you're a bit like us and you're a commentary nerd or a media geek or just like a bit of good commentary. To be perfectly honest, now we usually do read out all of the comments, whether good, bad, or against Kiko. But I think because we've got a couple of commentators coming on the show tonight, and we'll be talking about another couple of commentators as well, who are our friends. I think if you comment about them, I think just understand we might just skip past them. We're not going to tell you who they are.
Especially if they're not very nice comments.
Yeah, like, so-and-so's crap. Yeah, Kiko was absolutely rubbish at the weekend. I mean, someone was absolutely rubbish at the weekend, for example. And we will maybe, I think, dig out Kiko's commentary debut as well a bit later in the show. He did actually do another classic Kiko, i.e. jinx somebody at the weekend. You'll have to tell us about that.
Quickly, we have 6 minutes. I'm going to say 5 because that's going to tick over to 5-2 in a moment. We're going to run through the World Superbike results. It was another World Superbike event this weekend. We're not going to go too much into it because obviously we have Steve Parrish coming on very shortly indeed, but we was going to do it anyway. Where's my paperwork on? Here it is. Right, race 1 then was Jonathan Ray. He wasn't looking like he was going to do it though at one point because it was Marco Melandri who led until 4 laps to go, and then he retired. Literally, I couldn't believe it. He retired out of the race. Jonathan Ray took it. Chaz Davies was second, and Tom Sykes was third. Alex Lowe's was fourth, and Michael van der Mark is fifth. Michael van der Mark, by the way, while we're on that point, is on the Tech 3 Yamaha this weekend coming at Malaysian Grand Prix because Jonas Folger has an illness which Lester keeps telling me is an STD.
Well, he's got, what is it called? It's like mono something or other, and I googled it, and apparently you contract it by kissing. It's called like the kissing disease, so therefore it's an STI.
Whatever you say.
That's what Google says.
Sylvain Gintoli was sixth in race 1 anyway, on his comeback to World Superbikes. Interestingly, Sylvain Gintoli has only been higher than 6th in British Superbikes twice this year. 4th at Aston, 3 times. 4th at Aston, 4th at Silverstone, and a win at Aston. So, I don't know what that's meant to read. 7th was Lorenzo Salvadori, 8th for Eugene Lavity, 9th for Xavi Forez, and Roman Ramos was 10th. On to race 2. Jonathan Ray, Marco Melandri, Chaz Davies, Alex Lowe's and Tom Sykes. That was your top 5. Jonathan Ray doing his 13th double since joining Kawasaki. And he levelled with Troy Bayliss on race wins as well. Great stuff from him. Michael van der Mark was 6th, Forrest 7th, Gintoli 8th this time, but 2 top 10 performances. That's stellar stuff. I mean, 6th on a privateer on a customer-based bike is pretty good running, if you ask me. 9th place, Leandro Mercado, and 10th place, Jordi Torres. We're coming on to Leandro Mercado right now. He has not got a ride for the last race of the year as of yet because Ioda Racing have folded. There is no more Ioda Aprilia in World Superbikes. Me and Gregory Haynes were having a little bit of a conversation about it on Twitter. It's all public. Go and have a look.
Oh, yeah.
Gregory Haynes said that he will be riding something that is for a team that is currently not on the grid. Now, there's rumours of a team coming over from the USA called Dream Team. They want to run Aprilias. There's also rumours about them going to a BSB, but how true that is, I don't know. And then there's Suzuki. They want to put some bikes out, so will they do that? Maybe, maybe not. There's some rumours that Suzuki will be pulling out all of their factory effort from all of their Superbike championships, which I find very hard to believe because they won the Australian Championship with Josh Waters. They were 1-2 in Motor America with Elias and Roger Lee Hayden. They were TT winners with Michael Dunlop, and they won a race in BSB with Sylvain Gintoli. So not lots of rumours there. In Supersport, just quickly while we're on the news, Hikari Akubo has signed for Pacetti Racing, the team that Carl Ryde left 2 rounds ago. Back in Portugal, he wasn't at Randy Court. As well as that, while we're on the Carl Ryde subject, it looks like he'll be in British Superbike somewhere, whether that's in Supersport or Superbike, I'm not so sure. About that, we will find out in due course, I believe.
Okay, fantastic stuff. And do you have any insider news about anybody going to anywhere? Have you heard any rumours about stuff?
Well, all I do know is that the Morello Kawasaki team that runs Steve Buckingham, that Steve Buckingham runs. I'm just imagining Steve Buckingham in a Superstock race now. That's just quite funny. Sorry, Steve. They are already tested. They have a rider lineup, 99.999.9% occurring. Don't know what I'm on about here.
Steve, why don't you just tell us who's on the bike anyway? Just let us know.
I will be talking and liaising with Steve about 4,000 times a day because that's what we do. But he's fairly sure that he's got his riders. He may even put a third bike out. He won't tell me who for because he doesn't know if he will put it out because there's obviously swings and roundabouts with a third bike. Anyway, That's all the insider knowledge from me. Let's find out some knowledge from Stavros Parish.
Yes,
right.
yeah, we will get I suppose, one of our star guests live on the show tonight, Steve Parish, coming up in just a moment. And after him, we will talk to Max Cook as well, who did pretty well in a recent Spanish test for the Red Bull Rookies. He will tell you himself how he got on. And Michael Howarth will be on a bit later on after him, followed by Charlie Nesbitt and the man who's kind of the man who is responsible for one of the hottest junior championships anywhere in the world at the moment, Roger Keys from Cool Fab Racing, on the show a bit later on. That's all coming next.
Now. This is Motorsport Radio. Join the conversation and have your say on motorsport-radio.com. Motorsport Radio. The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.
Yes, we are live right now on a Thursday evening, usually a Wednesday, depending on whenever Kiko's at work or whatnot. This is the Superbike Show here on Motorsport Radio. My name is Lester. Thank you very much for tuning in, live or sharing it, or just pressing play or downloading it by accident. Either way, thank you either way. And yes, we will be chatting to all those people, as I said a moment ago, in just a short while. But first of all, we will be crossing over to Mr. Steve Parish, I believe should hopefully, this is technical stuff. Steve Parish on the line. Hello, good evening, Steve.
Hello and good evening to you.
It works. Fantastic. Yes, hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. You are live on Motorsport Radio. And thank you for being on at, such short notice. Thank you. We dragged you on.
No problem whatsoever.
So Kiko Alexander Giles has, he is responsible for getting Steve on at such short notice. And Kiko, you've got questions.
I have. Steve, thanks for joining us again, and great to hear you, of course. We're going to start off with a bit of World Superbike conversation. You've been commentating on it for a bit of this season. What are your thoughts on 2017? People would class it as a bit boring, but it's been a record-breaking year, especially if your name's Jonathan Ray.
Yes, it has. I guess the trouble you're up against is probably the other two races or events that people watch are British Superbikes and MotoGP, and they've been outstanding years as far as close racing is concerned, and a kind of a real mixture of winners and people at the front of the pack. So if you look at it and use that as a comparison, then World Superbikes probably hasn't had quite the same interest. It's a very difficult one. If you went back, 10 or 15 years, maybe a bit longer, Mick Doohan was dominating it, and then after that, Valentino Rossi. I'm talking about MotoGP here. So things run through cycles, and at the moment, I guess you could probably say with World Superbikes, there's too many British riders in it, or too many British riders at the front. If Marco Melandri had got his act together a bit earlier in the year and was mixing it in as he was in his sort of previous career before he retired and came back, I think it would have sparked it up a bit. But it's a difficult one. The Kawasaki is obviously very good. The Ducati is very good. The Yamaha and the Aprilia are getting better. We've just gone through a couple of years where there's been 3 or 4 guys that have been out in front, and it's left it not quite as exciting as we'd have wanted it. But I don't think that will last for long.
Do you think the amount of British riders in the championship is affecting not only the British audience but a worldwide audience? Because if the other countries that are watching around the world haven't got a rider to cheer on, well, why would they want to tune in the first place? Do you think it's having a knock-on effect across the world?
Yeah, I think it probably does a little bit. We've been through periods where there's been nothing but Spanish riders at the front, and we probably get a bit fed up with that. I think, it's unfortunate you turn World Superbikes on, and it could be turning British Championships on, I guess, when you talk about the way Jonathan and Tom Sykes and Chaz, those guys are in there, and they seemingly have been for the last couple of years right up the sharp end. So yeah, we do need some other riders, but we need some faster motorbikes, and it's a difficult one. I guess you're going to talk about the rule changes of what they're trying to do, and they're trying to penalise the fast bike. But that's kind of happened, I guess, in lots of forms of racing over the years. People keep changing rules and regulations, trying to find a level playing field. But I'm not sure if you ever do. You might try to, but generally the bigger, fatter your checkbook is, the faster you're going to go, and you can buy the best riders, the best technicians, and have the good motorcycles. It's very difficult to stop that happening.
Absolutely. 2017, though, I think has improved a little bit, because we've had Yamaha absolutely nearer the front, and Leon Camia's been a lot more competitive on an MV Augusta. But people still think it is boring. Now, do you agree that it's boring, or do you look for other dynamics to maybe focus on?
No, you'd be an idiot if you call it boring, because watching guys of that talent and ability and riding motorcycles with 220 horsepower sliding around and things is not boring as far as I'm concerned. Watching Formula One is boring because nothing happens. But truthfully, the races haven't at times been as exciting as we would have liked. And yeah, I guess you're going to have to say that Jonathan Ray's dominance really has sucked some of the fun out of it, but you can't stop him from doing that. He's a hugely talented rider on one of the best bikes out there, so he's dominated the series this year. But the Super Sport has been really good. Super Stocks has been really good. As far as the whole meeting's concerned, I think Superbike's really good. I quite like the Saturday-Sunday event. It gives you 2 days to kind of suck up the atmosphere and what's going on. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't call it boring, but yes, there has been a certain amount of dominance there, certainly the first part of the year from Kawasaki. And it's nice now, as you just said, to see the Yamaha getting faster, and I think the Aprilia is ready to turn the corner as well.
Absolutely. Are there any advantages that World Superbikes has over MotoGP? You alluded to the comparison between the two earlier, with MotoGP having loads of different winners at the moment, but what has World Superbikes got that maybe MotoGP hasn't? Is there something that makes World Superbikes maybe in one way a little bit better than MotoGP?
Well, I guess from a manufacturer's point of view, if I'm Mr. Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, whatever, I would like, they're showing their wares a lot more. There's no doubt that the manufacturers in MotoGP, it's the premier class, and they want to be in it, of course, as does F1 and Mercedes and Renault and people like that making engines. But Superbikes has 2 races over a weekend, which is good. One on Saturday, one on Sunday, as we all know. It is ostensibly production bikes. I know they're modified quite heavily, but you can actually see that there's a ZX-10 out there, and you can see there's a Ducati Panigale, and you can see that there's R1 Yamahas out there and Fireblade. So you have got that direct relationship with what people are going to purchase on the roads. And I guess you could say that the mixture of all the other classes that are out there, there's only 3 in MotoGP, isn't there? With Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP, whereas there's a lot more classes in World Superbikes in that they just have more races going on over the weekend. So it's a pretty packed weekend, I guess you'd say. Isn't it? And the organisers, Dorna, we know, are the same organisers, but they're doing a real big push on giving paddock entertainment in World Superbikes with paddock shows and everything else that goes on. So it's a pretty full day.
Do you think that with the split of races over the course of 2 days, some people will say, "Oh, I can't afford to go for 2 days," but if they threw in a World Supersport race on the Saturday as well as on the Sunday, do you think that may be a more appealing option for the audience, trackside?
I don't know, because I haven't been a paying audience for a long time. All I can say is Sunday, you still get, even if you just go on the Sunday, you get a full day with Super Sport, Super Stock. You've got the little 300s out there, and you've got one Superbike race. So it's not as if you're losing out on anything. It's still a very full day of racing goes on Sunday. If you've got a weekend, then great. Turn up on the Saturday, watch qualifying, Super Poles, and you get to see a race going on as well. So I think that's probably a bit of a bonus. And I guess Superbike, unfortunately for Superbike, they've had some of the wind taken out of their sails when it went from 2 strokes to 4 strokes in MotoGP. Superbike was there, been there a long, long time. 1988, I remember being at the first race at Donington Park, which was the 4-stroke. Back then it was all 2 strokes. So there was a big difference, there's a massive differential between the 2 classes. Well, in lots of ways, MotoGP has sucked up some of Superbikes because the bikes aren't dissimilar in the fact that they're 4 cylinders, 1,000 cc's, 4-stroke, with a kind of a similar type of package out there. Okay, one is it hasn't got the same restrictions, and they are the ultimate machine in MotoGP. So yeah, they've actually kind of in some ways evolved to a much closer championship, the two of them.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Moving on then. I'll give you a scenario here. At Aragon on day 3, which is the Sunday, there was 11,234 people trackside. At Jerez on race day, which is Sunday, there was 11,022 people trackside. So with them figures in mind, the Spanish rounds are the lowest attended championship rounds across the whole season so far. We haven't got to Qatar yet. But it's owned by a Spanish organisation, which is Dorna. So, with both of them being the lowest attended rounds, why is that? What's going wrong for World Superbikes in getting people trackside?
Well, Spain has always been very orientated towards MotoGP. It's got their superstars in it, all their top riders, and it's kind of, I guess, dominated in some ways. I haven't got the figures in front of me. If you took all the classes, I suspect that Spain is the biggest nationality in MotoGP, and it's always really been that way. But I can remember, again, if you went back a few years, back in the UK, I think World Superbike's got more than MotoGP. I don't know. You can't force people to go. I guess when they've got, the trouble with Spain is, how many's it got? 4 MotoGP races. It's got Jerez, it's got Aragon, Valencia, and Catalonia. So there's 4 rounds in Spain anyway. And I guess people can only go to so many races. And if you want to go to the top end and see your big heroes like Danny Pedrosa and Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi, that's the one you're going to have to go to. And, let's face it, World Superbikes, no matter how you want to sugarcoat it, it's still Division 2. MotoGP is Division 1.
Absolutely. Okay, so just sticking with that point, if you took a Spanish Grand Prix off MotoGP, would that benefit the World Superbike attendance trackside, or do you think it would stay the same?
No, I don't think it would. I don't think the Spanish have ever truthfully embraced World Superbikes. I don't really know why. I guess that the fact that they've sort of evolved with the 2 strokes, and Spain used to make ball tacos and bits and pieces, and have had manufacturers out there that have made machines that have been in MotoGP. No, I just don't think that the Spanish probably have embraced World Superbikes. That's it. But it isn't the case in a lot of other countries. We've certainly had a big crowd. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't very good in Magny-Cours in France and places like that. And I think we will get a big crowd if it gets back to Donington Park and places like that in the UK.
Yeah, just while you're on the Donington Park, I think in 1999 the figures for the Grand Prix was 15,000, and then for the World Superbikes there was 90,000 people that turned out to watch World Superbikes there. So do you think that it could change in the future, and we will get the masses of fans going back to watch World Superbikes like it was in its golden
well, as I say, things evolve, and I guess if Valentino Rossi retires from MotoGP in another couple of seasons in World Superbike, that could certainly boost the numbers. I'm not saying he's going to, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. And yeah, as I say, you just never really know. Things turn around and evolve a great deal. We're still waiting to find out where MotoGP is going to end up in this country as well, which is another interesting discussion. But never say never. I just think that the fact of the matter is, no matter what you say, MotoGP is the premier class. And if you looked at it in the car world, and I'm not trying to put any real comparison there, Formula One probably gets 10 times, 20 times more than any other form of car racing. If you look at things like GTs and Formula 3s and Formula Electrics or whatever, no one goes and watches it at all. So it's only really Formula One where people go and watch it. Whereas we do have classes where still lots of people go. I would say, I'm not a circuit owner, but I would say that British Superbikes is the biggest earner for all the British circuits in this country. It's the top event, and it gets the biggest crowds for anything.
I absolutely agree. At Donington Park, again, we'll use the Donington Park example. There was more people at BSB than what there was at World Superbikes. But moving away from the crowd then, obviously yesterday the World Superbike rule changes came out at long last. What do you make of them for next season?
Well, Well, there's an element of ambiguity in it, in that they haven't really. They said there's going to be some limits, but I don't think they've actually specified exactly what they're going to be and when they're going to be, because I think it changes, and it can. Scott Smart and the team around him are going to kind of look at things, and I guess start imposing the odd penalties, whether that's revs or whatever. And that happens certainly in touring car racing. I know in British touring cars that they have weight penalties and all sorts of things going on. It's tough. And if I was Kawasaki and Ducati, I wouldn't be very pleased, because they're putting more effort in. It's a bit like, probably not many of the listeners out there would play golf, but I do play a bit of golf, and basically it's like saying an 18 handicapper can play with a 2 handicapper, because you get more shots given to you, so it evens it out and it makes a good game of it. That's never really been the case in motorcycle racing over the years, but maybe that's going to happen. Maybe we need to do things to make a show out of it, and it is a show. It's competing against lots of other events that take place week in, week out, whether you're in Spain, Italy, France, Germany, or wherever. Motor racing and motorcycle racing has to compete with other exciting things that take place. So maybe you have to make a show out of it. I don't know. It's a real difficult one. I personally don't like penalties, but if people don't turn up and watch it and it's the demise of Superbikes, you have to change things.
Is there a risk that that Kawasaki could drop out of World Superbikes? That World Superbikes could lose Kawasaki as a manufacturer because they're not in Grand Prix?
It's not impossible again. My concern has always been with motorcycle racing, when you're in top level, is when you start taking away certain technical elements of it, the manufacturers will eventually disappear, because most motorcycle racing over the years has been to develop better road bikes. That's one of the things that does happen. There is a direct correlation between racing and road bikes. People sometimes forget that the Japanese manufacturers, and Ducati and the Europeans for that matter, they don't go motorcycle racing because they love motorcycle racing. Truthfully, their budgets come from selling the bike. So if you're not careful, it's a tail wagging the dog. And if you take away all the electronics maybe from Kawasaki in World Superbikes, they're going to say, well, hang on a minute, we budget. We use our research and development budget to go out and race and produce better electronics and better engines and better lubricants, the same with the oil companies and everything else. It's a test bed, and so that's what you have to be careful, that you don't go and upset people. So they say they pick up the toys and go home with them, because if it's not a test bed and they're not developing it, then why should they bother chucking millions of dollars into it?
Good point. Got a question here from Sarah Chambers. She wants to know, will these World Superbike rules stop Jonathan Rea from winning?
I doubt it very much, because I would suspect that Kawasaki will be working as soon as these rules are stamped and approved and they know exactly what they are. And it looks like there's going to be a rev limit, okay? Well, they'll go back and they'll redesign their engine probably that gives the torque and the revs lower down. I doubt it, frankly, because I think they've got a great package, a great team, great rider, and I think they'll probably be able to adapt their bike as well as anyone else out there. So I don't think it will stop him winning, no. Unless they take a plug lead off, I can't think what will stop him.
It's true. And another question here from Tim Davies. Should World Superbikes have gone further with the rule changes?
Well, it's a difficult one, because until you get the first race underway, how do you know what everyone's going to do? That's the deal with racing. You kind of keep your powder dry until you get out there and race the first round. And sometimes there's a bit of sandbagging goes on. No, I don't think it needs to change that dramatically. What I'd like to see is the other manufacturers putting more effort into it, and I'm talking about Yamaha and Aprilia, to get out there and possibly improve to bridge the gap. I'd rather see them getting better than bringing the top ones down. That's personally what I'd like to see. But again, you can't force manufacturers to go and spend lots and lots of dollars on their superbikes if they're already budgeting and spending it in MotoGP. So they're stretching themselves all the time.
Absolutely. If you was a race organiser or director, what would you do to make the racing a lot closer?
I do think that I would possibly, I'm not saying it brings it closer, but I think I would, in World Superbikes, I'd have a pace car Again, not a big fan of them, but it works in British Superbikes. It stops races being stopped when it's televised. It keeps the action going. And on occasions, it closes the pack back up again. I think that's one thing that they probably should look at. It works very well in British Superbikes. I can't think why it wouldn't in World Superbikes. Other than that, I guess what you have to try and do is do a bit of a Bernie Eccleston, and that's be the ringmaster and try and make sure that you swap riders around onto bikes around that somehow will make it a more even match, which might mean trying to get budgets for a lesser team that can afford a better rider. That's probably another way of trying to sort things out. You have a look at what the packages are and really try and match it all up to make sure that you've got some close racing. But very, very difficult, as I say, until we get the first and second races maybe underway next year. Who's going to know what package is going to work and what doesn't?
Absolutely. Back to you, though, as a person, as a commentator, presenter, what will your plans consist of in 2018? You're the voice of the Northwest 200. Is that in your diary?
Yeah, it's a long way in advance. I suspect that for 2018, I'll certainly be doing Northwest 200 TT, Classic TT, maybe some World Superbikes, but I'll be racing myself in some classic races. I'm booked to go out to New Zealand and Australia in March doing that. I'll probably be doing 10 of my theatre shows, the Mad Tour, and lots of after dinner talking, hosting different events. I pretty much most weekends I'm busy doing something.
Okay, talk to us a bit more about the Mad Tour. So for people that are unfamiliar about it, what is it and what can they expect to find there?
All right, the Mad Tour was conceived 4 years ago. It's called the Mad Tour because my daughter hosts it, and it stands for My Adolescent Dad, MAD. And she has had to endure my childish behaviour for, I better not say how old she is, but 20 plus years. And it's really stories about what used to happen when you could do daft things, when PC stood for pulling crumpet as opposed to politically correctness nowadays. And it's back in the 70s and 80s when we used to go racing at weekends and muck around the rest of the time, whereas now everyone goes to see the physio or goes to the gym or see the dietitian or whatever they do. And it's a 7-day-a-week job, where ours was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we had the rest of the time to muck around. So, yeah, it's probably what I call the halcyon periods, dangerous periods, don't get me wrong, but it was times when we all travelled around, known as the Continental Circus, having a lot of fun and enjoying ourselves. So really, it's going back in time, really. Could be called the good old days even, but it's a fun evening, guaranteed, 2-hour show at theatres around the country. We'll be coming your way sometime.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Does some of that mucking about involve something in Macau about a?
There was lots of mucking about. Macau definitely falls into that category. So does being a doctor on a plane. So does blowing up toilets. So there's just things that used to happen. Trouble followed me around a little bit, I'm afraid.
Oh, I'm sure it does follow you around. We've got a quick question here from Tony Scott, who did run the Moto2 outfit in British Super Sport. How do you feel about Moto2s being introduced to British Super Sport within BSB? Do you think that's a good idea?
I guess it's down to costs, really. It seems as though Super Sport is disappearing. I'm not really too sure why, because it's always been some great racing. I guess it's down to manufacturers not making that class of bike now. Someone made a suggestion the other day, a friend of mine, about what about having 750s, because maybe that's a category that we could find enough bikes to get involved with in the 750 class. All I can say is I think as long as we've got competitive bikes out there and riders that can ride them to the maximum, then it doesn't really matter what CC they are. I'm just a bit worried that Moto2 would be way out of the budget of some people. Certainly it'd be a higher budget to start again than Super Sport is at the moment. So whether or not you can find enough teams that have got the budgets to do that, I have no idea. The other thing that we didn't mention is I wish to God, for God's sake, we could have some sort of uniform class with the world, really, so we could have more wild cards, because that is something that we used to love seeing when we went to different countries, particularly the AMAs in America, and certainly British Superbikes over here, and German Superbikes when we went to Germany. So it'd be nice to have at least 5 or 6 wild cards at each round.
Yeah, because that was, again, a unique selling point for World Superbikes, that World Superbikes would rock up at Brands Hatch and Shane Byrne could go and win a race as a wild card, and likewise for people like James Hayden and John Reynolds. It was a really big event, and it was kind of like a weekend event where lots and lots of people gathered to watch like their heroes. At one point, Brands Hatch World Superbikes was the biggest sporting event in the whole country. So, do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Well, I think that's I think, but to do that, we have to get some sort of uniformity with regulations, because at the moment British Superbikes is way away from World Superbikes. So the bikes that we've got here wouldn't fit into World Superbikes, and I guess the IDM in Germany probably doesn't, and certainly the AMA, which is not called AMA now in America. What's it called? Moto America, I think they run pretty much standard bikes. It'd be cool if we could get some sort of complete uniformity of superbike racing throughout the world. That would make life a lot easier.
Yeah, that really would. Finally, on my list of questions, we'll just check the comments shortly. What is your autobiography about? Because when I gave you a present at Snetterton, and we'll talk about that again after, actually, what's your autobiography about, and is it coming out soon? Is it on the horizon?
It's due to be out in May. I haven't got a date at all, but sometime in May next year it's due to be out. We're still working on a name for it, but it's pretty much same thing. It's not a great deal about racing. It's about the things that went on in between the racing throughout my life of 43 years without a proper job. So it's very much about the life and times of what went on back in the good old days that I said about earlier. So in some ways it's a bit weird, really, because often books end up in the theatre. Well, my theatre show is going to end up in a book. But obviously, there's a great deal more in the book. It's something like 80,000 words, so it's going to be a proper read. It's out in May, and I'll probably be in prison in June.
We look forward to seeing you there. Wandsworth, I guess. When I saw you at Snetterton, how is your remote control mouse going along? Just explain to people about the remote control mouse for those of them who don't.
It's going really well. It actually ended up in Burnham-on-Sea at one of our theatre shows last weekend. Scared the shit out of my daughter. It went on tour, and as she was coming out onto the stage to introduce the show, it came flying out from behind and frightened the life out of her. So it's going really well. It's definitely going to end up at the NEC Motorcycle Show. It'll be on the stage there. It's usually got a little sign pinned on it for James Whittam, who will be working alongside me at Motorcycle Live on the Black Horse stage. And often he starts rabbiting and we can't get him off the stage, so it's often it goes out with a sign on it saying, "Shut up and come off the stage."
Have you got a name for the mouse?
No, I haven't yet, because I've got actually... It was very kind of you to donate me the mouse that you did, but I've got about 3 of them in different ranging sizes. Oh. I actually call them rats, but you're probably not supposed to do that because people in the Isle of Man don't like rats.
I suppose that's a point. And the last bit, then, we're going to come to it. This is the last question. Is World Superbike's decline, I suppose you could use that word, decline, is that down to World Superbikes being behind a paywall and not on the BBC or ITV or any other free-to-air broadcast?
Well, actually, Superbikes hasn't been on a free-to-air, and I'm going to get this right, I think since 2001.
With yourself and Lee Diffie?
Yeah, that's right. And then 1 year with Charlie Cox.
Yes.
So it hasn't been on free-to-air for some many, many years. So yes, that doesn't help, of course, because there was a period of time when it was hugely popular back in the foggy era when it was on free-to-air. So yeah, that certainly hasn't helped it, you'd have to say. And that's probably the same with arguably the decline of MotoGP. Now, I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek. Certainly it's not going down. There's some great racing, but not anything like as many people are watching it. That's the problem. For the bike fan that watches MotoGP, he's going to end up on Monday morning at work and no one else has seen it, if you know what I mean, because it's not on free-to-air telly. So unfortunately, it's lost about 80% of its audience now. So that's a shame for our lovely sport.
And do you think Dorna, as World Superbike organisers, just briefly will look at that and think we need to really, really channel some money into MotoGP and into World Superbikes and into the broadcasters free-to-air to get them big audiences and the popularity back?
Well, they haven't got to channel money into it. What they've got to do is take less. What's happened is what's really happened is that Dorna have been when it came up for grabs, and and I'm talking about all over the world, not just in the UK, they get paid probably 3, maybe 4 times more by the pay channels than they do by the free-to-air channels, and they've opted to take the money from the free-to-air channel, the pay channels, which clearly boosts their coffers dawn of towers. So, and that's happened certainly in France and Italy and in the UK, where they've lost the free-to-air factor and they've lost 80% of the TV audience. You've lost the casual viewers. That's really what is rather sad. And I'm not saying they're not necessarily big bike fans. They maybe don't own motorbikes, but they used to thoroughly enjoy watching it, and we've lost that.
Absolutely. Steve Parrish, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for coming on.
No problem whatsoever. Cheers now. Take care. Bye.
Ta-ra. Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. Well done, Kiko, for sort of dragging Steve on at literally short notice with yes. A couple of hours, and it was fantastic to hear him. It's always amazing to hear. Yeah, it's always it's great to hear Steve. And last time I saw and heard from him was when he was racing a car at the Silverstone Classic. Myself and Dan Marr were there. And there was the annual celebrity race that was taking place. I think it was him, Maria Costello, who didn't actually end up doing too well, unfortunately, in the race. I think she retired at the first corner, but we won't mention that. And other people whose name have escaped me because I've got a bad memory, and not out of any disrespect. But yeah, and it was good to sort of meet him there, and he told me at the time that he had to actually sort of reapply for his race license because he'd not actually raced for a number of years, quite a good few years, which I kind of found it sort of hard to believe because in my mind anyway, I always thought he was always sort of busy doing bits of celebrity races and one-off things, and but apparently not. No, that was his first time in many years doing an actual sort of race, albeit it was for charity and full of other celebrities. Can't remember how well he got on in it though, but. Still good to hear from him anyway. Well done, Kiko.
Do we have another guest lined up very soon?
Yes, we do. Funny you should mention that because as we mentioned earlier, it is Michael Howarth, and for those who don't know the name or who he is or what he's done or what he does do, just tell us, Kiko. Michael Howarth, just give us a quick introduction.
Michael Howarth is a co-commentator alongside Fred Clark. He will be heard on the BSB radio. For those of you tuning in that aren't at the or who don't listen to Eurosport, it's on the BSB website, or it's actually trackside. He's the trackside commentator. He used to be a British Superbike rider, and he's hoping to come back, and we'll try and find out more with him tonight.
And I believe he does join us right now on the line. Hello, good evening, Michael.
Hello.
Hello, fantastic to have you on the show. You are live on Motorsport Radio. Welcome. How are you, first of all?
I'm all right, thank you very much. I noticed you put me on after 9 o'clock, though, with my past history of radio interviews. I always have to go after the watershed, apparently.
There has been a couple of comments I was reading along similar lines, but yeah, thank you for coming on anyway. And once again, Kiko has a bag full of questions for you, Michael.
Michael, hello again. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure this will be a colourful interview for sure. Sum up British Superbikes in 2017. You followed it all the way through, really. What a year.
Well, yeah. Pure excitement, I guess. It was topsy-turvy and went all around the houses all year, didn't it? You know, with obviously a lot of people don't like the short end system, but you can't say that it doesn't work, and it doesn't make things much more exciting towards the end of the year. So yeah, just another fantastic year, really. It's with new riders coming through and making it just more exciting. So we've not just got Shaky Byrne and Leon winning every weekend. It's proven itself to be the best domestic championship in the world again.
Absolutely, we had 10 winners in the season for the first time since 1998. What's that mainly down to? Is it down to Stuart Higgs and race organisation, or is it just luck that we got riders coming in?
Yeah, well, yeah, it would have been 11 if I were there, obviously, but, you know, the injury still prevails. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head yourself, Kiko, there. It's the simple fact that since the the rule change coming in, was it 2011? I think it became across the board or whatever. That it's built up and it's built up that everyone can get the same forks. Everyone's on the same electronics. You know, there's no real factory team in BSB anymore. You know, Paul Bird's as close to a factory team as you can get, I guess. But yeah, everyone's on a much more level playing field. You're not having to spend all the money on the fancy parts because they're not allowed within the rules, and it's now showing that teams that once of a day stood no chance now stand every chance.
Absolutely, yeah. And back to this year, we kind of went off there a little bit, but back to this year, what's been your highlights and who's disappointed you this season?
Oh, good grief. Disappointment. Wrong word, especially with quite a few of the riders and stuff being my friends. I think, well, the highlight, I've got to say, for me personally, was Jake Dixon coming to the front and winning both races at Knockhill. I think that was a big turning point for the championship. That definitely showed that anybody could come in and kind of win in BSB. You know, it was his first real year in Superbike after injured himself the year before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that set a good precedent for everybody because it gave everybody self-belief that a very small team with a very small budget could win races. And then he made the showdown. Yeah, the biggest disappointment of the bloody Hellfire. I'd have to say, Michael Laviter. I expected so much from the kid on the Yamaha. Now, it turns out, trying to be a bit PC, it wasn't all Michael's fault all year, basically. I don't want to slate the team because they were a great team, and I don't want to slate Michael because he's a great rider, but the package together didn't work, and there were reasons behind the scenes that the public didn't know about that were a lot deeper than everybody thought. It wasn't just an issue of chatter and such. So yeah, as a package, Michael and the McCams Yamaha on his side of the garage were the biggest disappointment, and I think that Ellison was just bloody unlucky. Yeah,
that's a fair point. Yeah, lots of bad luck across all the way to the year. If I was to pick one, I think it'd be biggest disappointment would probably be Tyco BMW on the whole not getting in. No one cares what you think. You're interviewing me. We're not bothered about your opinion. Listen, Michael, don't you start getting brave. I'll just throw you off here in a moment. I'll tell you what, I'll set Tony Morris on you. I bet he's tuned in right now.
I mean, anyway, what I about before in when you were on about MotoGP and you were bagging out good riders and your man there that's on radio, well, you couldn't pick the same bloody rider. Come on.
Luke Hatton said Michael definitely won't be swearing if he's got a pie in front of him. Moving on then. most memorable moment of the season, or most magical moment of the season?
Well, the most memorable, but it's certainly obviously not the most magical, was Leon's crash at Brands Hatch, which decided the championship. The most magical. That's a fair question. That. Because there were so many. I mean, even something as simple as like Lee Jackson at Cadwell getting himself on the podium. I thought that was magical. You know, not kid that went out and won the season, and unfortunately, I think he's lost his ride at the end of it. But again, it just showed that the young talent's coming through, and the old guard are slowly losing the grip on it a little bit. You know, it's not. I think 2018 is going to be a ridiculous championship. I think you're going to see so many different riders winning next year. I think that you'll probably beat 10 riders next year.
Wow. Well, we'll hold you to that then. What's been the best race though? If you could go back and watch one race from 2017, which one would it be?
The best race. Do you know what? I haven't got a best race. Like I say, I think Dixon up at Knockhill. I think they were phenomenal. But I think, certainly not the best race. I think the best weekend was the last weekend. Was Brands Hatch. The showdown finale. The three races all across it because of what it meant. And Leon after the first race, he finished fourth. You were thinking, he's got this in the bag. He's got this in the bag, and then everything went tits up in race 2, and obviously he binned it on race 3. But for sheer excitement, and the crowd certainly got value from it. There were 58,000 people there, which is the biggest crowd we've had in God knows how many years. I know there's been 120,000 folk there watching Fogarty, but you know the crowds across the board, across the country, are getting bigger for BSB because it's just getting so good, and the racing is so good.
It really is. It really is. Well, who's been the best BSB team of the year? Who would you say that honour goes to?
The team of the year. The team of the year. Well, I suppose. I don't really know. Again, you say the people that. Well, in fact, no. For me, it'd be Peter Exton's team. JNG's Food Set, because they've been knocking on the door for a couple of years, and I genuinely thought, and it's not taking anything away from Pete and all these boys and Dean and the crew. I just thought that when they got Liam at the start of this year, I thought it was going to be hard for them because they've been in the limelight, but they've just been underneath. Do you know what I mean? On the top, if there were 4 teams at the top, they'd be the 4th, and then all of a sudden they were fired up to the top, and it was like, you're now expected to win. You've no bloody choice at this. You've been given Kawasaki's back in. You've been given Leon Aslan. You know, he signed for you. So, yeah, I would say that they acquitted themselves real well, and then a very close second would have to be the Anvil Tag High a lot, but because signing Josh was a massive coup, but Josh couldn't have done what he did without those guys. And yeah, they've had minor success in other championships in Super Sport. I think they've run with one race with Richard Cooper, etc. But to come from a team that scored 3 points the year before with Rispoli and have always been a backmarker team, then go, boom, we can give Josh Brooks what he wants. He's got what he wants, and he starts winning races. Yeah, that was pretty bloody good, I know. Yeah,
I'd probably be agreeing in both of them situations. No, right, we'll have a topic of conversation now. We've thrashed 2017 to shreds. What's your thought of Moto 2 in British Supersport?
What's my thoughts on that? Well, I seem to went to grain with everybody for this because I'm a big advocate for it. I think all this claptrap all year about Alistair Seeley coming in and spoiling races and all this nonsense, he were giving mad asses something to whinge about, basically. You know what I mean? There's nothing to mourn about. So what we'll do, we'll call Tony Scott, we'll call Alistair, and what the bloody hell's BSB doing, letting this up? Well, the bike needed testing in a racing environment and in race situations to see what it was like as a package, how much it would cost to run for the weekend, so that Tony Scott and BSB could go away and do their sums and come back and say, right, we can do this in years to come when Supersport dies out for around the same sort of money as what a super sport bike costs to run. I've heard a few of the ideas for the rules and such, and they all sound very good to me. I mean, nobody wins once when the speed up chassis has been in there this year because it wasn't battling at the front. So everyone's having a go at Tony Scott and Alistair Seeley for doing such a bloody good job. Well, how does that work? Do you know? You know what I mean? It didn't interfere with a single race this year, Alistair. It didn't affect the championship in any way. I think there was one person that fell off battling with Alistair. I think was that Joe Francis. Am I right in that?
Thruxton.
Yeah. But Joe would have gone for that move if it had been any bugger else. And also, that wasn't because it was Tony Scott's bike and the triumph thing there. No. So I think it's needed. I think next year when there's quite a few more bikes in doing it, I think it'll be a good little sub championship alongside Supersport. And unfortunately, the process has got to start now because Supersport's going. The bikes are going. I don't know the real reasons behind why the manufacturers are stopping with 600s now, whether it's down to emissions or this, that, and the other. I know they cost as much to develop as a 1000cc bike does, and then on the road for road bikes, 1000cc bikes have got that many rider aids and they're that small that people I think they're just skipping over it and thinking, why the bloody hell do I need to bother going getting a little 600 when I can ride this 1000cc bike quite easily, even R6, even the Yamaha, they released the new R6 this year, they put a new fairing on an old bike. Do you know what I mean? They didn't do anything. They changed top and ever so slightly, made it so it passed some emissions. But so I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I can't wait to see 9 or 10 of the bikes out there next year.
Okay, that's a fair point. We had a conversation with Steve Parrish about World Superbikes. What's British Superbikes doing right that World Superbikes is doing wrong? Why can't the two?
Well, every British Superbikes is doing everything right that World Superbikes is doing wrong. I think it's as simple as that, isn't it? I don't know I don't know what World Superbikes game is. I don't get it. I don't understand the politics behind it. All this, BMW are saying that they use the electronics they use in World Superbikes are essentially what you get on the road bikes, because in that they can just dial in and they can mess with them. So that's their system sorted. Kawasaki electronics. There was supposed to be a 10k price cap on the electronic systems. It's just there's so many loopholes and ways around things in World Superbikes. I think that's half the problem. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And when the rules were written for BSB as it is now, they were written by Scott Smart and obviously a few other people, but Scott's the technical director in World Superbike. So if Scott was given a free hand to say, right, this is what we're going to do, and that's it, I dare say that World Superbikes would be a force to be reckoned with again, as far as the racing goes. But it's just not that way, and the few rule changes they made for next year are neither here nor there, and I don't really see what they're doing, to be quite honest.
They're very vague. I find they're very hard to actually interpret. What are they actually trying to get at?
Yeah. It's just...
Yeah. But another talking point away from all kinds of superbike racing now is the British Grand Prix venue. Where do you think it will go? Why do you think it will go there? But where do you want it to go is the bigger question, I think. Donington or Silverstone?
Well, I want it to be at Donington because I've already booked my bloody hotel for next year right near the circuit. So it's nice if it goes to Silverstone. I'm going to do is drive every bloody morning to get them there, because hopefully I'll be commentating again with Fred. If they'll have me back. Of the chief executive, the head poncho at Silverstone apparently really like what I were doing. But yeah, it depends. It depends if he starts going to his Alcoholics Anonymous meetings or not, to whether I get back next year. Because once he's sober, I think I'm a clown. Riders would want, most of them would want Silverstone because it's a great track to ride, and it is a Grand Prix circuit. The fans all want Donington because you can see a lot more. The right people have certainly got Donington now. Like it or not, this is not sucking up to BSB and Higgsy and Palm and kissing their asses in any way. But the fact is, the circuits that they took on so far, they've turned them around. Whether people like it or not, venues now are a good place to go. There's someone cleaning the toilets all the time. There's plenty of food stalls. You can do so much. In BSB 10 years ago, you're walking into a toilet and you might as well just gone on the floor. They've cleaned it up and they've made it a good family experience for everybody. So if they can put the investment into Donington, because it does need quite a lot of upgrading. If they got the Grand Prix for next year, I would imagine that'll only be 3/4 of what you would come to expect. So if they got a 5-year deal, say, next year it'd be a bit of a struggle because they just don't have a time frame to get everything perfect. But after that, those guys running Donington and running MotoGP would be fantastic for sure. Definitely. But like I say, Silverstone's it's just so big. There were 60,000 folk there, and there were about 3 folk there this year. So you put 60,000 people in Donington's little natural amphitheatre, and it'll look packed, and it'll look an amazing spectacle. Like Phillip Island only got 30,000 people there this week, and I don't know if that's a good crowd for there, but it still looks fast. It's a fair track, So yeah, no, for me, Donington, please.
Okay, that's good. That's good enough for me. What's your plans on racing for 2018? I hear you're making a bit of a comeback at the grand old age of 51.
To be honest, mate, I'm busy with one or two things. And I was in hospital again yesterday with this bloody hip that I booked last year. And I was expecting to be given the all clearance so I could go and crack on, and unfortunately it's just not worked out like that. I have to go back in 4 weeks now. They're not happy with something in my pelvis, they're not happy with something in my hip. My back's not so cracking. But like you say, I'm an old man, so I'm not really bothered about any of those. I just want to be fit enough to be able to start testing if something happens around February time. And the longer the injury carries on and they can't get anything to fix, they can't fix it in time, then it takes away from me, being able to lose about 15 stone and get fit and actually ride a bike and see if I can get up to speed. But yeah, there's a couple of irons in the fire that are looking good, and we'll be doing something. We'll be doing something. I mean, you know, this year I've not rode at all. I'm just going to do my little plug thing here, but we're still with a little side company that I have supplying bike parts and bits and bobs. We've sponsored 14 riders this year, I think it is, with leathers from One X, from the leather company that me and my business partner run in this country. What a couple of kids have won world championships at wearing them in the 300 Kawasaki Cup, and Luke Edger had them on this year. You know, but so I've always had involvement, and I always will. But I am hoping to be back next year on a superbike in Superbike. But we will see. We will see.
Okay, right. We got a question here from Tony Morris. Can't say this is unexpected. He says, pie, chips and gravy or pie, mash and liquor?
Well, he is a liquor, and he knows that already. That it is obviously chips and gravy, because why the ruddy hell would firstly, why would you get a potato where you can make chips out of and roast potatoes and gratins and all sorts of beautiful things? Why would you boil it to death and turn it to mash, for one? So that's out the window. Liquor, didn't that used to be something that they were made out of eels that come out of the Thames? Yeah, and wanged a bit of parsley on and made it all right, and then covered that over a beautiful pie. No. The southern folk, they're a bit funny, they're a bit weird, but we tolerate them because they keep the French away from us up north. So they're all right, but no, chips and pie, chips and gravy for me.
You're talking rubbish. Anyway, well, the second question is again from Tony. What do you think about James Ellison going to tag racing?
What do I think about James Ellison going to tag racing? I'd like to be able to just sit on the fence here and say nothing, but that's not my way, and I can't. James is a very good friend of mine. I have a lot of respect for him. He's ridiculous. He's a very, very fast rider on his day, as proven. You know, many times he's a proven race winner, etc. He's done MotoGP, he's done this, he's done that. I just hope that if he acquits himself in the right way and doesn't. Because even though he's left basically what was the factory team, even though they got a little bit of factory system, he's left the big team to move sideways to a slightly smaller team, and I hope that doesn't have any effect on his mindset. That the bike's not just right. It's not like this one that was last year. If he goes in with a clean slate like Josh did and works to get the bike how he wants, then yeah, he'll do all right. But sometimes it just. It could be hard for him, and I hope he proves me wrong. And that's not taking anything away from James or tag racing at all, in any way. I don't want him to keep making stimulate. I don't want him to keep saying, "Oh, well, last year my bike was this, and last year my bike was that." He needs to go in as if he's on a completely different machine. You know? Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Another question from Dixie Dave Clark here says, how can you get motor breakers back in the paddock?
How can you get motor breakers back in the paddock? Well, I've been trying since he left, to be honest. I speak to Sean on a daily basis, and I'd love to see him back. He's one of the big characters that we have in the paddock. He runs a good setup. He's a genuine bloke. He's a spade's a spade, and if you don't like him, he's not bothered. I think he just needs. I think he's one of them. He's been around forever, and maybe he just needed a break. And we'll see if he comes back next year. And I hope he does. But one thing is for sure, he won't stay away for too long. Maybe bribery. He don't mind looking at a young lass in bikini top. So maybe if we get a few more of them down, he'll come running back. We shall see.
Michael Howarth said that, not me. Another question here. Simon Hall says, do you think that Thruxton should be dropped due to the incidents that happened there this year and the tyre wear issues from this year?
Absolutely not. It's down to the tyre manufacturer to make a tyre to last a race and sort it out. And I did see a lot of the super stock riders were struggling like mad. And yeah, it was... obviously there was the unfortunate incident there, and there was quite a few others. Yeah. But the the one where the lad unfortunately lost his life coming onto the start-finish straight, that could have happened anywhere. So you can't say that was down to a circuit. It wasn't because Thruxton's so fast, because it was on the slowest part of Thruxton coming onto the start-finish straight. So, yeah, they are in the middle of making vast improvements, and believe me, the BSB safety guys, the commission that they have, that go around and check the tracks week in and week out and do all that. If they didn't deem it safe enough to race there, we wouldn't be there. From a rider's perspective, you'd have an absolute backlash. You'd have folks going on strike if you got rid of Thruxton, because it is one of the best circuits that we race at. Just for the sheer speed, it's completely different to anything else we have anywhere. Snetterton used to be similar until they changed it to that 300 setup, which is just a bloody go-kart track. I can't stand it. But yeah, the sheer exhilaration and the speeds that we get at Thruxton, I don't think you'd find many riders that dislike it and would say that they don't want to go there anymore.
Okay. And finally, I'm going to put you on the spot because you are a commentator. If you could pick 2 commentators in MotoGP, who would they be? And if you could pick 2 commentators for World Superbikes, who would they be as well? 2 commentators in MotoGP? Yep.
What, you mean actually on the telly job? On the telly?
Yeah, broadcast, yeah.
Oh, well, me. And probably Neil Hodgson, because he's from up road in Burnley, so we could turn it into a proper northern show.
No, but we don't want that. We want sensible people, so who would you have on?
Well, tough. You asked me, and that's my opinion. So me and Neil Hodgson for that. But that had never happened because what BT Sport have done with MotoGP, I know it costs a fortune to watch it and all that claptrap, but the show they put on every weekend is fantastic. And I've watched the guys working at Silverstone. They work themselves to death to bring the show to TV. So, it's a shame it's not free. I agree with Steve Parrish on that one. I think that when BSB was free to air many years ago, it was so much easier to get sponsors. Yes, you didn't get all the championships in because they kind of focused on just the superbike races. But like it or not, when it was on terrestrial TV, the viewing figures were a bit more. And it just seemed to be easier to attract sponsorship from for a kid that we're going to a thing and said, "Oh, we're on BBC Two or ITV or whatever." It did seem a bit easier. So that's a shame. World Superbikes could be anyone really, little and large, Bill and Ben. It doesn't really matter to me because until they find a format that works, I don't see nobody can make it interesting because it's just plain and simply not. I feel for Steve Parrish. I feel for Whittam. I feel for all the guys that are having to commentate on that because it must be hard work. Genuinely, must be hard work because and I don't know whether there's something in the way that it's filmed and the production of it that just doesn't seem to. It doesn't ignite. You don't need people watching around the outside of the track to make it interesting on TV, and there's just something missing. And I hope they find it because the MotoGP is doing so well. We need World Superbikes to do well because it all filters down and makes, it just brings more people into the sport and makes it watch it, and then it makes it more viable. You get more sponsors. It makes for a better do.
Yeah. One other reason that you wouldn't be able to go onto MotoGP with Neil Hodgson is because BT Sport wouldn't invest in subtitles for normal English people to actually understand both of you. But
I think you'll find that when I have done TV work in the past, which I do put on my CV, Michael House, TV presenter, extraordinaire, people can understand me quite well, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, I do apologise to all the people in
Richard, never mind
that can understand the local dialect.
They've got that Colin Edwards on, he's from Texas, he's not even from England. And everyone understands him, so they'd understand me just fine. I'd be fine. I'd be good at that. I'd be good at MotoGP.
Michael, he talks English. There's a reason for that. You talk foreign.
He speaks American English.
We're not going to get into the racist zone of Northerners.
He can't even say aluminium. He says aluminium or whatever they say over there. You can't even speak English.
I believe it's raining, Michael, so you better go and clear out the gutter on the inside of your house because that's how much it rains up north. We're going to let it off. And we will catch you in the near future. I'm sure we'll be in touch. And thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me, dude. Cheers, mate.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Motorsport Radio. The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.
It is, and thank you very much to Michael Howarth for coming on the show as well and imparting his words of wisdom and
Don't go that far.
Words, anyway. Yeah, for giving us words. Anyway, you're welcome. Anyway, Michael, thank you very much, and to Steve Parrish as well for dropping everything. To come on our humble little show, the Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio. My name is Lester. Kiko Alexander-Giles is right here, and well, we're not done with interviews just yet. We've got some fantastic things coming up in just a moment. Max Cook will be telling us what he's going to be doing in 2018 and what he has just been doing over in Spain. RE Red Bull Rookies. And also Charlie Nesbitt, find out about his season over there in that Europe thing, and potentially what might be happening next year for him. Kiko caught up with him at the weekend, and he'll be telling us in just a moment. Plus, the man pretty much responsible for a huge wave of young talent, and one of the greatest, biggest young racing, let's say, academies or proving grounds or young rider championships anywhere in the world. Cool Fab Racing, as it is known now. Roger Keys spoke to our commentator Alex Raby at the weekend on Sunday at the end of the championship to tell us about the season, about what's coming up next season, and to tell us about just how amazing some of these young riders really are. But before any of that, though, just to actually go back and talk about some of the commentaries that we've been talking about all throughout the show. Michael said he would pick himself. Michael Howarth said he'd pick himself, and who else for TV commentary for?
Neil Hodgson.
Okay.
No, for MotoGP.
That was his opinion. We've had other opinions as well. Chris Howells said earlier on Foggy, Whittam and Parrish would be good. He didn't say exactly for what championship, though. Maybe MotoGP. Or maybe World Superbikes. Maybe that's what it needs. Another interesting thing happened as well at the weekend when we were at the final round at Cool Fab Racing in Rowra, in Cumbria, at the kart track there. The Cool Fab Racing commentator, the TV commentator for the past few years, Jake Sanson, and Alan Tadei as well. Well, Alan stood up and announced to a gathered crowd of about 100 people and ourselves that, subject to confirmation, Jake Sanson would be the World Superbike World Feed commentator in 2018 for Dorna.
Well done.
Congratulations. Yep. Yeah, smile, mate. Sanson. And that would... It's kind of amazing to think as well, because those who know about Cool Fab Racing, especially last year's Cool Fab Racing commentator, Jake Sanson, and Tom Brooks as well, is now a Dorna commentator. He's working over in Spain as well. So that's two Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bikes Championships commentators who I've both produced at some point to some degree of success, now seemingly working on a world stage for Dorna. Amazing. Congratulations both, by the way.
Yeah, well done. And well done to you, Lester, for being such a fab lecturer. Get what I did there? Fab lecturer?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I don't take credit for Jake or Tom getting those jobs. They are great anyway. But I don't know. I don't know. It's nothing to do with me, I suppose. I'm just lucky enough to sort of be on site. We had a nice little disco on Sunday night, I suppose, and a few people had a couple of beverages.
Too many.
Yes. But yeah, no, well done to those. So the answer, I suppose, to perhaps who you might pick, Kiko, for a World Superbike commentary has already kind of been answered anyway. Alan Tadei, the Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bike Championships commentator, one of the commentators for the past few years, told us that, in fact, subject to confirmation, it will indeed be Jake Sanson. Maybe that will help improve the spectacle. Maybe crowds might become flooding back to World Superbike, or is it more complicated than that? Maybe?
No, I think it's great to get young people, new blood in, someone who's not been in World Superbikes before and has a nostalgia problem that looks back on World Superbikes and hates it because it's not what it used to be. So it might be brilliant to see a fresh pair of eyes onto World Superbikes, and hopefully Jake has some exciting racing to commentate on, or hopefully Jake makes the lackluster racing more exciting.
And you can, of course, find out exactly what he sounds like, Jake Sanson, on our website, motorsport.radio, and head to the Cool Fab Racing videos that we have on there, or the links to the YouTube videos on there, and you'll be able to hear him and Alex Raby, and as well, Kiko Alexander-Giles. He did a bit of commentary as well. He's... and let's call him an aspiring sort of commentator, I suppose, for future. We'll keep our eye on him anyway. But yeah, while we were there at Cool Fab Racing, the British Mini Bikes Championship, Kiko caught up with a couple of super charging young riders. First of all, we've got a couple of interviews. First of all, Max Cook, just tell us a bit more before we play this, Kiko.
Yeah, Max Cook, a standard class winner in Motorstar in 2017 in the British Superbike Championship. He was riding this weekend's events, or previous weekend's events at Cool Fab. He'd already done some rounds as well. Had a really good battle with Bradley Ray a couple of rounds ago, I think, at Glenny-Gores. But yeah, really big, bright British talent. And again, Cool Fab's to thank for that. And the likes of Roger Keys we'll hear some more of later.
Exactly. So here is Kiko's brief interview with Max Cook.
Max Cook, who has had a bit of a stellar season in Britain, both here in the Cool Fab Championships and also in the leading British Superbike Championship. You finished as your standard class winner. How did that feel when you finally wrapped it up, because it's been coming for some time?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing really, with all the hard work that my family, the team, myself have all put in, just finally paid off, you know. I mean, everyone that I'm with has done the best they can, and you know, it's all paid off, so really happy. What's
the next step from here? Are you going to look at going maybe to Spain? I hear you've qualified for the Red Bull Rookies anyway though, so is that...
That's right. So well, in this week I've been at the Red Bull Rookies selection event in Almeria, and fortunately I've been selected for that for next year, which will run alongside the MotoGP. So that'll be all over Europe, which I'm so excited to get started next year. And also alongside that, I've been selected for the British Talent Cup, which is amazing really. So you get 2 free rides as well, so it'll be a lot easier for my family next year. So yeah, really happy with that.
With you also being selected for the British Talent Cup, you wasn't the only one in the standard class to do that. You was selected alongside Thomas Strudwick, who's had a really good end to the season as well. Does that feel like quite reassuring that not only have you been picked for the big Red Bull Rookies, but you can stay in Britain as well, race with people that you're familiar with?
Yeah, exactly. So I know, all their strengths and weaknesses. I know sort of who I'm up against as well, and sort of what to expect. So that's the thing with the Red Bull Rookies, because it's all around the world, and I've never ridden with half of the kids there. I don't really know what to expect for next year.
With people like Johan Zarco, for example, he's come through the Red Bull Rookies, and look where he is now. Is that somewhere you aspire to be, right up at the sharp end MotoGP-wise, or are you looking at maybe a longer plan? Superbikes, is that an option as well, or are you focusing primarily on MotoGP?
I'm focusing MotoGP. I always have been since I was 6 years old, so I'm going to keep chasing that dream and hope to get there.
Will you miss the battles back in Britain, back in the standard class?
I'm not too sure. I think towards the mid-season, the battles did get really good with Victor Rodriguez and Thomas Strudwick. So, but I think the battles in British Talent Cup and Red Bull Rookies will be far better.
And what are you looking forward to the most next year? If you took racing aside, is it all the travelling and meeting some famous stars, obviously in the Grand Prix paddock, or is it the experience? What are you looking for in general? Like, what are you looking forward to the most?
Well, racing aside, I would say I think being in the MotoGP paddock, it just feels, like I've actually, got somewhere. I think being in MotoGP, seeing Rossi there and seeing all the races on the track around the world, I think that would just be amazing, really.
Yeah, and that's obviously where you aspire to be. So is it quite a reassuring thing that you've got to where you wanted to be, and like now you can really start the hard work and not come to like rainy days in Cumbria, miles away from anywhere?
I'm really looking forward to it now. Yeah, so I think I don't know. I don't know what to expect at the minute, but I'm just, keeping my hopes high, and I'm extremely excited.
And final question, we've spoke about this year a little bit, but sum it up as a whole. You've been here, you've been in the standard class, dominating it. So, how's it been this year? Has it been harder or easier than you thought?
Yeah, I don't think 2017 really could have got any better. I think every championship I've been in, I've won, and every selection event I've got to I've got in. So I think 2017 couldn't get much better. I have a wild card with the European Talent Cup in Valencia next month, so I'm really looking forward, to how the season will end.
All in all, things are looking up.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Really
Thanks for joining us up here on a rainy day at Rowra.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
This is Motorsport Radio. Join the conversation and have your say on motorsport-radio.com.
Boom! There we go. Max Cook in fine voice there at the weekend, talking to Mr. Kiko Alexander Giles, who's deep within Twitter, it seems.
Absolutely, yeah. Excuse me.
And full of phlegm and snot and everything.
Deep within a packet of I don't even know what's the local tablets.
See, this is how bad his cold is. He can't even banter properly. This is how bad things are. So it might be out of action.
You can't banter. So just steady on.
Max Cook, fantastic to actually hear from him, and congratulations, well done, young Max. For he'll be doing the old Red Bull Rookies next season. That's good.
Yes. I think it's going to be very interesting. It just goes to show that at the grassroots of racing, the talent is there. It then moves up to the British Superbike Championship, and it remains, and then it gets spotted from a wider audience. There was more eyes watching you in the national championship than what there is in the grassroots of a country. So it's great to see that no matter what stage you're at, you can always be picked. Max Cook could definitely be another British hopeful. And, we can remember when we spoke to him, Leicester, when he's famous.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say, hey, Max, remember us? And he'll say no.
No.
Okay. Anyway, Charlie Nesbitt, you might remember him already. You might already know of Charlie Nesbitt. Been racing in the BSB support class for a couple of years. Anyway. And, still racing in Cool Fab Racing, pretty much for fun, to be honest. He often elects to just start at the back of the race, and he inevitably always does come through to upset the commentators and win the actual race. So let's hear from him as well. Kiko caught up with him at the weekend at Rowra for Cool Fab Racing.
Charlie Nesbitt, not only have you dominated here today, you've dominated last year in 2016 in BSB, and now you're in the CV. So how's that been this year?
Yeah, it's been not too bad. I had a run of bad luck in a few races, but it's been good so far.
Has it been harder than you thought, or has it been a little bit, not easy, but have you adapted better than you thought you would?
In a way, yes, but the competition out there is quicker than GP. Is crazy fast out there.
Is it good to get back on or get to wider circuits with miles of runoff where you can really push yourself instead of worrying about Cadwell Park's barriers, for example? Or
yeah, I mean, GP tracks are always going to be better than these British tracks. They're just in every way, safety-wise, runoff, everything.
How much did British Superbikes prepare you for the big time, so to speak, going off to Europe?
In a way, it didn't. But in a way, it put me in the position where I could go there.
Yeah, exactly. So your development as a rider would happen, but in terms of battling, obviously we saw you kind of walked off for the championship in the end, so it didn't really have a massive impact on that aspect.
No, it got me to the place why winning the championship, it got me to where I am now. But
so where you're at now.
Yeah, but towards racecraft, it didn't really do a lot for me, but I've learned so much this year. It's incredible. And
what's the next step for you? Obviously, you're in the CV now. You're in the feeder class to Motor P. So are we going to see a wild card next year?
Well, we've got a few things in the pipeline, but I think I can't really say a lot at the minute, but it's looking good for next year.
Looking good, bright future.
Yeah.
Do you miss British Superbikes at all? Or?
In a way, yes, because all my friends are still there. They're all having a great laugh, but I'd still rather race out in Spain.
Yeah, because it's a good career move for you as well.
Yeah.
Is there anything else outside of the track that you're getting up to out in Spain, such as, there's a lot more freedom out there. You don't have to worry about getting to or from events.
Yeah, no, I've just come back from a 4-day trial thing with the trials stage with the team. So we've done that, and it's been great fun. I've learned how to ride a trials bike. It's that sort of side, but I normally fly backwards and forwards after the race and train every day.
So it's not as luxurious as some people might make it out to be.
No.
So what about, you've left BSB, but did you imagine the year before you was in BSB you was riding a Replicast bike? Did you imagine that from there you could be ending up in Spain in such a short period of time? Obviously it's every racer's goal to get to the European world level, but in 2 years you've come from 5th or 6th place man to CV guy.
Yeah, no, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity with Redline KTM at the end of last year, because I showed some good results and showed potential, and then went on from there.
Yeah, and in CV this year I believe you had a small injury or something. You hit the back of someone swerved across. Just explain that to us.
This is at Barcelona. The guy ran off track and he came back on without looking.
Right.
And what he'd done is he come on without looking, going about 20 mile an hour, and I'm going obviously a lot faster.
Yeah.
And as he's gone across the track, I've hit the back of him and broken the back of my hand, fingers.
So that was a bit of a hindrance then, to say the least. But are you all okay now? And is it looking...
Yeah, no, it's all sweet now. I was back at the next race, ready to go.
Yep, and you got one round left, I believe, Valencia. What's the expectation there? What do you think you can do there?
I'm hoping to be fighting for the podium.
Okay.
Which I think is is the most definite I can do.
Okay, no problem. Charlie Nesbitt, thank you for joining us up here.
This is Motorsport Radio. Join the conversation
and have your say on motorsport.radio. Old web address, that one. But that was fantastic to hear from Charlie Nesbitt. He didn't exactly tell us, though, did he, exactly what he's going to be doing, but where do we think? Kiko, where do we think he's going to be next year? Yeah,
sorry, I'm on mute there. It's my throat. I don't want to talk too much. Okay. I think the end goal will be MotoGP, absolutely. Moto3 in the coming year.
This coming year, though?
Well, this coming year, he's got to be in CV, really, hasn't he? You don't want to take too many steps too quickly. You don't want to run before you can walk. And I think Charlie's had a good year in CV. Like he says, he wants to fight for the podium in the last round, but also an injury. So he needs to string a full year together, keep himself safe. I know it wasn't his fault, but he needs to stay fit and, have a proper go at it this year and in the coming year, and then move on in the next year. But I think next year he'll definitely stay with CEV, and I'm sure he will announce his plans very soon.
Indeed, and maybe we can even get him to announce them here on our little humble show, on the Superbike show, maybe.
Be really nice.
Or maybe not.
No.
He's welcome to, though, if you tune in, Charlie.
Absolutely.
That goes for any rider as well.
Motorsport Radio brand.
Exactly, yes.
Not very many places like that around.
Fantastic point. Which leads me on to another fantastic point about where these riders come from and where they're going. Because as we usually talk about here on this show, the Coolfab Racing British Minibikes Championship is, of course, now well established, but it wasn't always the case a couple of years ago, even I say a good few years ago. It was up until the start of 2016, just known as the Fab Racing Minibike Championship, and it was Fab. But it was run by the Keys family, Roger Keys and Rob Keys and Valerie Keys, and they did a fantastic job. In fact, they are all still running it, being in race control. Roger, I forgot exactly how old he is, but he is in his, I'd say, early half of his 70s, if that's not impolite to suggest, and to know that he's still literally doing a fantastic job for many riders and many teams, still helping to push them through and bring out the best in all of these riders to make sure that if it's their next step that they're going through to, if it's like straight into Motostar or just like Max Cook and many others have done, or people like Charlie Nesbitt as well, who are now ending up in CV. Some cool fab riders in the past are even now world champions. For example, they already still making waves in MotoGP and have been Moto3 champions. And Roger Keys is still very much at the helm of it. Still doing us all proud, really. It was our pleasure to have him in the commentary box over the weekend for the final round towards the end of the proceedings. And Alex Raby, the Cool Fab Racing British Minibikes Championship commentator for Motorsport Media, caught up with him to ask him about the season, about the riders, about pretty much everything, really.
And we're now joined by Roger up here in our commentary position. I think that might be the first time that you've been able to watch a race with us a little bit. Quite close finish there as well, wasn't it?
Totally exciting, particularly with you commentating. I couldn't see what was going on, but it sounded phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Well, hopefully those listening at home on the radio agree with that assumption as well. It was good racing, but we've had a high quality of racing all season, to be fair. It's not just one race or even one category. All of the classes have delivered plenty of action.
Yeah, I've been totally amazed by the improvement. What happens is you start off with the riders that are not terribly fantastic, and as the season goes on, they just get better and better. I've just been amazed at this weekend. I was commenting to everybody, look how these riders, they look so experienced now. Just one season and they've really got it. All you need is a really quick rider at the front and they'll all come up to that standard, and that's happened.
And we also see, there's a clear progression for these riders. They've got riders that come back into the adult classes just to show the way round, the wheelies and the Charlie Nesbitts of the world who come back and show the fast way round, show what the riders can aspire to.
Exactly. I mean, when you think Charlie Nesbitt is running in the Junior World Championship, and I think next year he's going to be doing that again. And you say we're talking international standard, not national standard. We're talking world standard, not even international standard. And that's the standard all these riders can aspire to. Not all of them will make it, but a great number will. I mean, for example, the British Talent Cup is 50% ex-fab or cool fab riders. Something we've got to be proud of. We don't tend to think of it all the time, but I think that was pretty impressive. Not for us, but the fact that the riders have made that standard.
Well, there's plenty of riders that we've seen this season who will surely make a name for themselves in the future. One name springs to mind who's not taking part this weekend. That's Casey O'Gorman. 2 class wins in the championships overall, and what a super season it's been for him.
Very, absolutely incredible. But one thing I would say about Casey, have you noticed how towards the end of the season, riders were getting closer and closer to Casey? And that's exactly what we want. We want another Casey every year in a class or several classes, so that the riders who are not as quick think, hang on a minute, it's only human, I can go that quick. And that's what we need to see year after year. And the more we get that, the more great riders we'll get. And I know we'll continue to get those great riders in the future.
And since we're talking about the future, look ahead to 2018. Have we started to put our thinking caps on for next season, or is it a little bit too early to discover any plans for next year?
Slightly too early, but I can tell you it will be bigger and it will be better in a number of ways. We're making a few changes, not a great number of changes. We'll keep all the good bits, like I suppose we'll have to keep you, but etc. And the filming, which actually gets enormous viewings now, incredible viewings, not only when it's live, but also when it's going out on YouTube. It's being watched all over the world, particularly in America, strangely. But yeah, there'll be changes, but I'm just hoping that we'll keep the quality. That's what the quality of the races is more important than anything else. The background's great, but we do need to get that quality.
Well, there was certainly plenty of quality on show this weekend. The riders, their second visit to Rower in 2017, of course. And even when the championships were decided in the first and second races of the weekend, before we got to race 2 later on here today, the quality of the action was still superb.
Yeah, they don't, just the fact that the championship is decided, sometimes that makes the others try even harder. Well, I'm going to beat that guy who's won the championship. They work even harder to try and actually beat him, and sometimes they will. And that's, again, really good because, well, he won a championship. I've just beaten him. I can win it next year. Or I can win the next class up next year.
Particularly as the likelihood is the winners will then step up to the next category, making a bit of a vacancy for riders to step in and fulfil that.
We've ordered a lot more Mini GPs. The Metric Mini GP, I think, is just the best bike you can possibly get to bring these young riders on. And we've been out to Italy, had a chat with the factory and said, we need to make this quicker. We need to have them available immediately. And we made some changes to their production system whereby in the short term, in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll be able to supply bikes quickly again, and from then on that will be the same situation. I see the 70 class being quite big next year. I see the 50 class staying as big or bigger than it is this year, some with new bikes, some with second-hand bikes.
We also see the rookies developing, the less experienced ones gradually gaining in confidence. Wet weather conditions, dry conditions. It's been a challenging weekend, but they've stepped up well.
If they rode all right this weekend, they did pretty well. We had some fairly severe weather. That's the best description. We had some flying gazebos all over the place, and it was an interesting night. But there we go. I think today we've been quite lucky. The weather's been kind to us. It hasn't rained hardly. The track is drying now, and there hasn't been high winds.
6 different venues in 2017. Obviously this was the final round of the season, so it's a bit of rest and relaxation now during the winter for everyone else, but perhaps not for you in terms of getting everything straightened out for 2018.
No, I've got some Grand Prix to do, and I've got another international race or two to do. Then I will actually have a rest. I'm going to have some holiday, and then around February we start it all over again. But I will be working towards next season almost from next week. From next week, we're already starting to plan things and change things, look at the regulations, see how we can alter it, how we can make it better. We'll always get accused of everybody's cheating, but that's one of those things in life. I've done it for 15 years and I've heard it for 15 years, and actually half the time it's just the fact that the cheating bit is that rider on top of the bike. Unfortunately they go too fast sometimes and we can't do a lot about that, but we'll learn to live with that.
And we're enjoying seeing them go fast, because the progression through one season is incredible, so the progression through 15 years is astonishing.
Well, yeah, makes me feel very old. I didn't think I'd be doing this after 15 years, but there we are. I shall be back next year for good or bad, so there we go.
We've already ascertained that we need more spaces on these shields and trophies, of course, for the winners, because we've got to that stage where it's had great longevity. Clearly we get to the end of the season before we start to think about next year. We've got the presentations of the trophies from the 2017 campaign. Got some great winners this year. Just a word of congratulations, I suppose, to those riders for their efforts throughout this campaign.
Yeah, I mean, the support we get from riders, not only the winners, but also, well, I won't call them also-rans because they're not also-rans in my eyes. To be fair, they've supported us really well. They work hard. They come to all the championships, and that's the way they win championships, by being there consistently and learning from those who at the time are better. Fantastic. They've all done such a great job. All the winners, all the champions, all the riders.
I'm sure you'd like to add a couple of words of thanks to others who participated in the championship. We'll add our thanks to you because we don't want you patting yourself on the back. But there are plenty of volunteers who've made it possible, families of the riders as well, who facilitate quite a lot of the effort from their youngsters.
I have to put up with a little bit of cheekiness from the younger marshals that we I
thought you were going to say from me.
No, well, I expect that from you. But I mean, they're just fantastic. I mean, the families always work with us. If we need a help here or there with whatever it is, somebody's prepared to pitch in. And the sisters, particularly of riders, or the daughters of riders, have been particularly helpful, because sometimes we struggle to find enough people to do even the podium, and we have sisters of riders doing the podium for us. I've actually never seen a podium. This will be my first time, because
it's taking place over there. Right. So as soon as I let you escape, you can tick that off your bucket list.
Because I was down the timing horse, finish off the results. So I'm going to watch that tonight, because we're doing them all at the end of the event this time. They're a little bit different to normal. normal.
Yeah, this weekend has been a little bit different to normal. It was different in the sense that it was a last-minute venue change as well, coming here to Rowra. I think word of thanks probably to all of the venues that have hosted us this season. They do a lot to facilitate our involvement, and obviously Rowra stepping in at the last minute. So full credit to them as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were very, very lucky. The fact that the person that normally runs the circuit was actually on holiday, but said, well, you've been coming here a long time, get on with it. Otherwise, we would have been stuck because we had to change the venue very, very quickly at the last minute. The marshals here are really, really good. The venue itself is excellent. The location is fantastic. Sometimes the weather's a little bit iffy, but this is Cumbria.
We do go to one or two remote venues.
Yes, we do.
Some far-flung destinations in Wales and of course Rowra as well.
We hope very much to add Scotland next year. We're trying very hard. We're already working on that, and it's not far across the border, but it's across the border.
And how about maybe the south, where I come from? That would be a help.
And actually, where I come from, we're hoping to perhaps, well, certainly there's a couple we're talking to now. We particularly would like to go back to Lydd. Lydd was suffering from the fact it had a too small a paddock. We just got too big for them. But I think the paddock's going to get bigger. I think the facilities are going to be improved. New timing office, that's good for me. So all in all, yeah, we're looking forward to the next season. Possibly an extra circuit or two, and certainly 8 rounds, maybe 9.
Well, we look forward to the 2018 campaign, but in the meanwhile, we congratulate you and thank you for your efforts in 2017 and wish you all the best for that rest.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex.
Thank you to Roger Keys and the Keys family, and to Cool Fab Racing for providing us with some amazing racing, and all throughout 2017. And I can't believe we're at the end of the season already. It's over, and wow, my head's still spinning.
Yeah, it's gone really fast, but again, so have the riders. They've gone mega fast this year. We've seen... All right, steady on. We've seen some great racing, really close racing. Mark the champion. Some of the moves that we saw over the weekend as well, especially with Ross Maguire with his racecraft as well, and some rivalries formed as well. So it's a great little proving ground. I can't wait to see where it all takes them. 10 years' time, Leicester will be looking back and saying, we knew them when they were here.
Yeah, probably less than that, to be honest. Less than 10 years, I think. Yeah. It's been there's been a good few memorable moments in Cool Fab Racing, and I'll probably tell you about them in case you haven't seen them for yourself or heard about them on our live radio coverage on Motorsport Radio. But yeah, when Kiko Alexander-Giles made his original first commentary debut with us, and not, as he might probably like to say, trying to forget the moment with BSB and Fred Clark. No, he actually made his commentary debut with Cool Fab Racing and with Motorsport Media and with me, basically. And it took place at, I think it was Lincoln in Tattershall, I think it was, the actual track. And, for those who haven't seen it, this, I think it went viral, this clip that we stuck on online. Probably one of the highlights of the season. It was from a static camera, because we were doing visual radio there, focusing on the radio and yada yada, it's not TV. So we had a static camera, just a modest little thing, pointing out of our commentary box. When one of the races, I forget which exactly, but just have a listen for yourself. And here is Dan Marr and Kiko Alexander-Giles making his commentary debut. Oh dear.
Eddie O'Shea's got a slight gap over Evan Belford so far. Ollie Walker he's still not broken clear. This is going down to the last lap, barring Act of God. Oh, barring Act of God, what a commentator's curse that is! Ollie Walker,
commentator strikes.
Ollie Walker has dropped it out of the lead.
And look how angry he is.
He is furious with that. Barring Act of God, well, I do apologise.
And you had a couple of other pearlers as well at the weekend, didn't you, Kiko?
Ollie Walker, I can only apologise here. I'm in almost tears. James Cook has got an advantage here, and it's massive.
And I'm not going to say anything.
And you know what that means as well? That means that
he's back up. He's back on the bike though.
No, it's not going to do anything. That battle for second place now means that there is going to be bikes in that massive group.
On your debut as well, Kiko. That must have been a terrible thing to.
Eddie O'Shea's
let's have a watch again. Let's have another listen to this.
Love it, thank you.
Ollie Walker is still not broken clear. This is going down to the last lap.
Byron Axelrod.
Oh, Byron Axelrod!
I know it word for word now.
So does everyone else.
And look how is still not broken clear. This is going down to the last lap. Byron Axelrod. Oh, Byron!
Sorry. Anyway.
Byron Axelrod, what a commentator's curse that is! Ollie Walker.
Commentator strikes.
Ollie Walker is.
Sorry, Ollie. That's probably his worst moment of the season.
I don't really turn off now.
Oh dear. But yeah, no. He did actually come back and do a really good race and a win that you were commentating on.
Last race of the season, yeah.
So yeah, well done. I suppose that's a nice way to end his season. But yeah, it was a fantastic season overall in Cool Fab Racing and in BSB as well. And we're not quite finished with bike racing just yet. A couple races left to go in MotoGP and that other thing as well. What's the other thing called?
Superbikes.
Well, yeah, there we go. It's not dead yet. But yeah, it's still good. And maybe we should have like an end of season highlight all round thing.
Yes.
Like bike party. I don't know what the thing. Anyway, anyway, so that is literally all we've got time for on today's show.
Well late tonight.
Yes, 2.5 hours of who'd have thunk it? Some days we struggle to get through a full hour, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, thank you very much to Steve Parrish, who joined us live on the show tonight, and to Michael Howarth as well, who joined us live on the show tonight. And a big thank you to Roger Keys as well, and Charlie Nesbitt and Max Cook, and to everybody tuned in as well live to this live stream as well here on Motorsport Radio. The Superbike Show will continue. And we will hopefully be confirmed as being at the Motorcycle Live show in a few weeks' time as well, Kiko. Something that you and me are both looking forward to.
Really am looking forward to doing a bit of presenting there for you guys and, chatting away and getting my ear to the ground, although it's always at the ground anyway. That's why it's not here, look. Oh, it's this one.
No.
Oh, well, we're 34 minutes overdue, so, you know.
I think Kiko needs a lemsip and he needs to lie down, I think. It's been a long week for him.
If we don't have enough question time, it's going to start without him.
Question time. Don't mention Brexit. Blimey.
Sports Radio. The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.